Okay, Aaron. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. In accordance with Section 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provision of the zoning bylaw, permission to extend or alter legal non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. My name is Isaac Laluz, and with me today is Ms. Satarodi, Ms. Sankar, and Ms. Manning, and Mr. Khan. The city staff assisting us are Simon Lamb, who is the Deputy Secretary Treasurer. We have here Brandon Clapp and Irving Bridgeraj. They'll be coordinating yeah. Okay. So the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas, the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, or Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 of the Mississaugas of the Credit. Committee of Adjustment public hearings are now conducted in a hybrid, in person and virtual. Some applicants and participants will make their presentations in person, and others will participate virtually by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform. The meetings are also streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Those who want to participate virtually and have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablets, or smartphone and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All virtual participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, you will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you're called on to speak. Those participating via video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelists when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. For those in person and virtual participants, Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with written submission deadline. Those participating through WebEx are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist control during the video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. Receiving a decision of the committee. People attending in person today who want to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must fill out a decision request card, which are found somewhere on the table there. And those participating virtually need to submit written requests by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email, because the Committee of Adjustment and the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email only. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Body known as TLAB, or in some limited circumstances, to the Ontario Land Tribunal known as OLT. However, the provincial government amended Planning Act and generally removed the rights of third party to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. Only the appellant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, special person, and public bodies as those termed in Planning Act are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure today will be as follows. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentations if desired. When the committee does not require presentation, Applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and or take the matter directly for decision. Each speaker, including the applicant, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when the 5-minute mark is reached. Any presentation or other materials you wish to submit to the committee must have been emailed in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members cannot accept materials at the hearing. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to receive a notice are informed of the changes. Then individuals, either in support or in opposition to the application, will be invited to speak. Generally, we first call on speakers in the hearing room here, and then those participating through WebEx. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker at the end of their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant agent has the opportunity to address only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion, and the application will then be taken to committee for decision. Now, for this afternoon session, we don't have any deferrals, and no deferral requests. Now, for members, committee members and staff, any conflict of interest to declare? No? Okay. So there is no closing file, I understand, and there is no minutes to approve. So let's start with application number 15, which is the 24 Sutherland Drive. And here we have John Goulding. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're online there, okay? Yeah, as I understand.
Thank you. Hello.
Okay, just state your name and address for us, please.
Sure. John Goulding, 245 Bessborough Drive, agent for the owners.
Okay, so could you please tell me, I understand I was told that you may be asking for deferral. Do you want us to go ahead with the application, or you still want to defer it?
Well, let me answer it this way. The application was initially supposed to be scheduled for a later agenda because I'm currently late. However, given that I'm first position on the afternoon agenda and that I am not aware of any opposition, either neighbor or planning, to this application, if the panel was inclined to motion for an approval, perhaps it's in everyone's best interest.
Hello. We do not decide before we see the application. We can't say if the panel decides to remove. I want to ask you one question. You want to defer or you want to go ahead with the application?
Let's proceed.
Proceed. Perfect. Okay. So here we have to legalize and maintain front yards soft landscaping. We have one variance, condition from forestry, and one letter of support. So please go ahead and make a short presentation, then we can move on.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. So this is an application to legalize existing front yard landscaping. There is an insufficient percentage of soft landscaping. This is landscaping that was done probably about 7 or 8 years ago when the new house was constructed under an approved permit, but for some reason the landscaping deviated from the approved plans, and so here we are after the fact looking to legalize the landscaping that has existed for about 7 years. This landscaping percentage is in keeping with previous decisions granted in the immediate area, and I'm not aware of any opposition by either area neighbors or planning. And as you noted, Mr. Chairman, there is one letter of support from the immediate side abutting neighbor. And so we feel that this application falls within the scope of previous applications granted, and that it should not represent a hardship to any of the area neighbors.
Thank you. Anyone here for 24 Sutherland present? No? Okay, and online we have nobody. Members, do we any question?
No.
Ms. Satarodi,
No question. Ready for a motion?
please go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to put forward a motion to approve this application with only one condition of urban forestry.
Thank you. Second, Ms. Manning, all in favor? Okay. Mr. Khan, yes, I see your hand. Thank you. Okay, unanimously supported. So your application is approved, subject to forestry.
Thank you, all participants. Have a good afternoon.
Application number 16, which is 312 Patricia Avenue. And here we have Linda Balazek. Are you here? Please go ahead. Just state your name and address for us, please. Okay, so all we have here is a build a deck, and we have one variance. Okay, members, do we need any presentation here? No. Okay, we can move on. We can move on for the decision unless you want to add something, or we just move on.
Nope, I'm good.
You're okay? Okay. So can I have a motion, please? Ms. Satarodi?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, this is a very straightforward application. I would like to put forward a motion to approve this application with no
No
condition.
conditions. Thank you. Second, Ms. Manning. All in favor? Okay. Unanimously approved. So you see, you made a good presentation.
Thank you. Can I ask one question? What happens now? Like,
Check with the staff how would you proceed, but it's all approved.
it's, okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
She's so happy. Okay. Item number 17, which is 597 Conical Drive, application number 17. And here we have Ali Tanha. Are you here?
Morning, Mr. Chairman and company members. Ali Tana from Ali Design Inc., 317 Youngest Street, Unit 301.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is a new dwelling, 6 variances, staff report received for information only, condition for forestry, and 1 letter of concern. Okay, so can you just make, please, a very short presentation, see if what we can, we'll move on.
Yes, the application is, as you mentioned, for building a new home. We actually have 5 variances. Originally, we had more, but a second revised zoning notice was submitted to the committee, which is dated, what's the date on this?
Okay. So you have
July 17. We have 5 variances based on that. I don't want to go through all the variances as it's pretty straightforward. The only variance that is a little bit different from the usual variances we go for is the coverage, which is 33.15. As the staff mentioned, mentioned in the staff report, the house itself is at 30%. But then we are proposing a cabana in the backyard, which is adding a 3.15% to the coverage we're asking for this property. I'm aware there is a letter of support with a little bit of concern from the neighbor, and also there are conditions by the forestry, and there is nothing from the staff. In general, looks like they're in line with this application. So at this point, I'll prefer to answer any questions regarding this application. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see if there's anybody in the chamber here for number 17597 Conicar? No, nobody is here, and online we don't have anybody. So members, any question? No? Please go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application, subject to the conditions of forestry in the August 10th report. I do see that there is one letter of objection from the neighbor, but it's actually mostly a letter of support with just one concern about drainage, which isn't the issue that's before us and will be dealt with later.
Thank you. Second, Ms. Attarodi seconding, all in favor? Thank you, unanimous. So your application is unanimously approved, subject to forestry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. Have a good evening.
Application number 18, which is 180 Rowe Avenue. Application 18, and here we have Glenn Robinoff. Are you there?
Good afternoon, it's Glenn Rubinoff here.
Good afternoon. Your name and your address for the system, please.
Yes, it's Glenn Rubinoff, Rubinoff Design, 18 Gloucester Lane, Toronto, Ontario.
Okay, this is to build a freestanding deck at the rear. We have two variances only. 10 letters of objection and supports letters and petition. So could you please give us because we have here we have 3 more speakers online, and give us please a short presentation so we can see what they have to say.
Sure, thank you. So there are 2 variances before you today. One for deck projection of 4.95 and one for rear yard setback of 6.12. I have reviewed the letters of opposition, the concern expressed, and spoken with the owner, and we've made some adjustment to the variance as a way to appease some of the concerns. So if I could just simply state what the change is for each variance for your record. So for variance number 1, the proposed rear deck projection is reduced from 4.95 meters to 4.07 meters. And for variance number 2, the rear yard setback, instead of being 6.12, would be 7.0 meters. So very close to the bylaw.
Okay.
And this is a way to minimize the impact that there appears to be some concerns expressed. The other item that I wanted to point out is that the planning department has no comments. Forestry has no comment. There's no city comments effectively on the file. There was no concerns expressed. And we feel that this is a minor application before the committee today. My clients are just simply looking to have a deck on the back to enjoy when they're out there, and are agreeable to privacy screens on both sides.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you changed the first one to 4.07 and the second one to 7. Okay, so let's see what if there are anybody here to speak. First, in person, anybody here to speak for the application? Please state your name and address for us.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean Galbraith. I'm a registered professional planner. I've been retained by the owners of 178 Row next door.
You saw the changes he made, yeah?
I did, and I discussed them with my client, and they do not fundamentally change her or my opinion regarding.
So please go ahead, make your presentation.
Thank you. So what is proposed is a very significantly increased deck size at a very high height. So I'm a pretty tall guy. I'm 6'4". The deck will start about 2.5 feet above my head, and then at 8'6", that's where the start of the deck is. It's about way up here, and then a privacy wall on top of that. You basically have what looks like effectively a 16-foot addition to the house, 15 feet tall. And it would be located 30 centimeters or about a foot from the side yard setback, from the side lot line, excuse me. If if you could go to the last exhibit, there, scroll up. Did a very basic photo simulation of, scroll up, please. Of essentially what it would look like next door. That's obviously the original 4.95. Going down to 4.07 does not significantly change the massing as it would relate to the side yard setback or the side yard with my client's property at 178. I also note that while I appreciate Urban Forestry didn't have any comments, no trees are actually shown on the site plan for some reason, and there are clearly trees in this backyard. So I'm not sure if they were given complete information upon which to create a proper review of the project. So as we know, the variances have to satisfy 4 tests under the Planning Act. The official plan, I mean, we could talk all about 415, but it really comes down to a question of fit. Does the proposed development and does the proposed variance fit within its context? And in my opinion, it does not. A nearly 100% increase in the variance, notwithstanding that's been reduced slightly, almost doubling the permitted depth of this deck located so close to the side yard. It does not fit, in my opinion. This is effectively unprecedented on this street. There has been one similar variance that has been sought to extend the depth of a deck, and in that case, it was 42 centimeters. That's the amount of variance, not almost doubling it. This is a significant variance. I do not believe that it meets the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, which is to ensure that development adjacent to each other is orderly and does not introduce undue adverse planning impacts, which I believe this variance does. I appreciate that it has been reduced a token amount, in my opinion, but it does not address the fundamental issue that it is significantly deeper and it's significantly close to the side yard. Happy to answer any questions that you may
Thank you. Any question? No?
I have a question.
You have a question? Please go ahead.
Yes, just a quick question. One of your concern was regarding the deck height. The variants which are in front of us, none of them reflect the height. None of them
Sure.
is against the height, but they are projection. The projection is a concern. So would you please?
Sure.
explain?
So the zoning bylaw takes this into account. It acknowledges that decks can be higher than 1.2 meters above grade. But the trade-off is that you're limited to 2.5 meters in depth because it recognizes that a high deck has impacts. And so to mitigate those impacts, it limits it in depth. And so it's not the question of can they have a high deck? They can. The question is how much of a wall, how much of what appears to be, from my client's perspective, an addition to their house projecting far into the backyard. 2.5 meters is permitted. And the Committee of Adjustment previously has permitted in the ballpark of 2.9, 2.92. This significantly exceeds that and sets a new high water mark.
Yeah, the new number is 4.07 meter.
That's
that they
considerably
requested.
larger
Thank
than
you.
what has been
Okay.
tolerated by the
Thank
committee in
you.
the past.
Any other question? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll get to the next speaker. Okay, Sandra Puri, are you there? I am. Okay, so please come on in.
She's the owner. I was speaking.
Oh, she's the owner. Okay. Yeah, because she's registered here as a area resident. Okay. How about Sean Galbraith? Are you there? Yeah, Jay.
Hello.
You're already. You may.
Go again if you'd like.
You want to make sure you're all there. Okay. Yeah. Actually, I don't have anybody else. And online there is nobody else. Okay. members, any question for can I have a motion? Yeah?
Do I get a chance to speak?
He responded to the questions, yeah. Huh? Did you want to speak, the applicant?
The applicant is on the phone.
Yes, yes,
Oh.
please.
How come I don't have her here? Yeah, so? Oh, yeah. Shit. Okay, Glenn. Glenn, are you there? Okay.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Sorry,
Thank you.
with these people
Yes.
in and out.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. So please respond
Okay,
to
so
the
just
respond to the concern. Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to address, first of all, there is no side yard setback variance. There is no height variance. It's simply a setback variance to the rear yard, which we've made a significant adjustment to, that it's a difference, the required is 7.5, and we're now at 7.0, which is 1'8" difference from the required rear yard setback. We also reduced the depth of the deck to 4.07. Now, this is the old site plan. We did provide an up-to-date site plan to the committee just a few days ago, but I recognize that for purposes of this today, this is fine. But I just wanted to point out that the tree, there are no protected trees being removed. That's part of the review. Forestry looked at this file and has no comments on this because they recognize there is a small tree that's undersized, that's bent over. It's not really a factor that would have an impact to this application. So we're really just talking about two variances and no city comments, and we've made amendments to try to address concerns. Plus, the concern of overlook, we're providing privacy screens so that any neighbors who might be outside would say, well, okay, I can't really see it now. I should also point out that 178, I saw that the deck right now, even though it's lower, it projects further than what we are proposing. So it's not unheard of to have a deck go beyond the depth, but it just happens to be because of where the main floor is, that's where the deck is. So we feel this is a minor variance, and we feel that the changes that we made have resulted in a much less impact, and it was in response to trying to appease the concerns. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any question for this speaker, Miss Manning?
Yeah, I think we're aware of it. There's no side yard setbacks, but what the neighbor's argument seemed to be, from my perspective, was that the height of the deck is important to recognize because it's the overall mass that's a problem for them. So do you have any comments towards that?
The height of the deck is basically because of where the main floor is. So they want to go out and be able to sit down and have dinner or sit outside. 2.5 is fairly restrictive in terms of being able to fit what you want on there. The only concerns that I could see with the neighbors, first of all, it's all treed in the back of the property. So there's no privacy concerns back there. Privacy screens on the side of the deck. I'm not sure what the impact would be to having the extended deck. It does have an impact on my client being able to enjoy his backyard. But reducing the depth of it so that there is more distance to the rear line, and it is an open deck. It's open underneath. It's not something that's enclosed. So I feel like the impact of it is really minimal to adjacent neighbors.
Okay. Thank you. Any other question? If not, can I have a motion, please? Ms. Sankar? Ms. Sankar?
Yeah, Through you, Mr. Chair, you know what, like, I've listened to this and I do want to take the neighbors, their concerns into consideration, but I've got to really judge what's before me. And I accept some of the technical details of where that deck, why it has to be at the height that it is. And I do recognize that the agent and the applicant have gone through some sensitive construction in the sense that they're putting up privacy screens. It is forested. Forestry has no concerns whatsoever. There's a bit of like petition for support as well. So based on all of that, I do believe that this is minor in nature and does meet the forecast. And so I'll put forward a motion to approve this application. And I will also put in there that privacy screens be developed on either side of the deck. I think it's from floor to
1.8 meters is usually what.
That's it. 1.8 meters is the standard.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Second. Mr. Khan seconding. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, we have 2 opposing and 2 for. Okay, well, I have to make the decision, and I believe what Ms. Sankar described makes sense. And we have no reports from the staff, nor the forestry, nor transport, nobody else, and except for the 2 variances which have been reduced. And I'll join the motion and move and to approve the application. So, sir, your application is approved, subject to the screen that has been described.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Application number 19, which is 26 Divadale, application number 19. And here we have Ty Roanoke. Are you there?
Sir, it's Tay Rook, planner for the owners of the property at 26 Divadale Drive.
Thank you. So we have here a new dwelling. It was originally approved on a condition, okay. We have 5 variances, forestry, and 1 letter of objection. Could you please give us a short presentation? We don't have anybody listed here unless somebody in the chamber. We don't have anyone else, so give us a short presentation so we can move on.
Sure, sir. The previous application you referred to was originally for a renovation or addition to the existing home on the subject property. That did get approved subject to some modifications to the side yard setbacks. They were seeking 0.4 meter on the west side, whereas the committee approved modified variances to the side yard setback at 0.8. My client, after that decision, basically reconsidered what they wanted to do with their home and decided that a new build would probably be more appropriate for their needs. So as a result of that, the variances before you today is 5 variances, 1 for the height, side yard setbacks of both the east and west side, the FSI, and also the setback to the rear deck. As you note that I have provided presentation slides that are in the file, and what you see is in terms of the area context map that's highlighted in green on the first slide. Those are properties within the area that are 0.6 or greater, and you'll note that where the subject site is located, which is highlighted in red, and green properties, those are properties that are greater than 0.6, and they're found throughout the neighborhood and on the immediate block adjacent to and across the street from the subject site. You'll also note that there's properties that have stars on them, and those are variances that have been granted or existing houses that are greater than 8.5 meters in height. And as noted in the variances, we're seeking an 8.95 meter variance for the building height, whereas 8.5 is permitted. And from a streetscape perspective and from a neighborhood perspective, this has been consistent with what's existing and been approved in the area. As it relates to side yard setbacks, you'll note on the site plan, and what you see is that there is a red dash build, red dash, and a blue dash. And the red dash represents the existing dwelling that's on the site right now. And you'll note that on the east side, the existing side yard setback is 0.71, and the blue dash was basically what was approved with modified variances at the committee, which was where the additions were going to happen. And you'll note that the proposed dwelling, in terms of this massing, is slightly smaller than than the additionals. And the variances that are being sought on both sides are 0.712 and 0.75. And on the east side, we're basically maintaining the existing context. And on the west side, we pulled it back slightly further than the existing dwelling at 0.4. You'll note that there's a final variance related to the east side yard setback for the rear deck. And you'll note on the side elevations, if you go further to the second last slides, the deck itself is pretty much at grade. So it's not an elevated deck in it by any means. So in terms of massing and views to the adjacent properties, I would submit to the committee that it is more than accepted, especially if there's going to be privacy fencing and wood board fencing between the properties, which there are. And you'll note that there's no opposition from any of the neighbors on either side. There's no comments from city planning. There is advisory comments from forestry, which relates to the pool at the back, which encroaches into the tree protection zone for a 80 millimeter tree. However, we do have options for that pool to rejig it or to relocate it to satisfy forestry. But nonetheless, it has no impact on the variances that are before you today.
Okay, thank you. Any question for the speaker? If not, if there is no question, can I have a motion then, please? Is that a question or motion? Ms. Manning, is that a question or motion? Okay. Okay, Ms. Satarodi, please go ahead.
Yes, to you, Mr. Chair, I would like to put forward a motion to approve this application with just one condition of urban forestry.
Thank you. Second, Ms. Manning, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, sir, your application is approved unanimously, subject to forestry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, application number 20, which is 34 Silver Grove, application number 20, and here we have Daniel Vencani. I hope I pronounced it properly. Daniel Vencani, are you there?
Hello?
Yeah, okay, please. Please state your name and address for us.
Hi, my name is Daniel Vinciani, located at 3 Halberdier Place.
Okay, here we have this new story dwelling, 8 variances. Staff report is asking to modify variance number 1 and 7 as you indicated, and forestry conditions, and we have 1 letter of support. So could you please tell us first, before you start, what variances you want to change to what?
Sure. So I would like first to amend variance number 7, the proposed area of the rear balcony at the second story from 39.68 square meters to be 30.09 square meters.
Okay.
Okay, and as per the staff report, I would like to adjust a couple of items during my interaction with them.
Excuse me, before we move there, the staff said you indicated that you want to change variance number 1 is 7. Now he told me number 7. How about number 1?
So I would like to clarify number 1, if you allow me to.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, so during my interaction with staff, they reached out to us and they mentioned that they had concerns about the side yard setback of the rear platform and the basement walkout located on the other side. I would appreciate if you can pull up the site plan. Yeah, so the revised site plan was submitted on August 8th. And there we go. That's the one. Yeah. So the west side yard was improved from 3.08 meters to 4 meters, whereas the eastern side yard was improved from 2.6 meters to 3.54 meters to the basement walkout. Now, this was what was asked of us during our interaction with planning, but variance number 1 does not exclusively mention this to the platforms at the rear. So I think variance number 1 applies to the building setbacks, but not to what the planning required us to do to the rear platforms. So I would just like to ask the committee to tie the drawings to the site plan in order to avoid any future conflicts. So that was my clarification for number 1. And this was all done through our communication with planning, only for the rear platforms.
So the fact that they said you indicated to change number 1, you had no intentions of changing it, is that correct?
So they asked us to reduce the side yard setbacks of the platform and the basement walkout, and that's what I've done on this revised set of drawings, including the site plan. But variance number 1, as it's written, it also implies the building, which I'm not reducing the side yard of the building.
Okay, please.
So I just wanted to verify that, yeah.
So please go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, we are proposing a 3-story house. The 3rd floor is located entirely within the roof. We are asking for a slight increase in overall height, and this is mainly due to significant grade difference from the front of the property to the rear, which is about 2 meters. And this is to avoid the rear portion of the building to be below grade. So that is why we're asking for that additional height. And if you refer please to the west side elevation, you will notice that the wall height of the building is well below what the bylaw allows, which is at 9 meters. We are at the rear of the property, I believe, is around 6.87 meters, and at the front of the property is at about 8.6 meters to the underside of the soffit. So with respect to the side yards, we are asking for a slight reduction of the side yards, but the way the bylaw is written requires 1.8 meters plus 0.6 meters for each story of the building. In our case, the 3rd story is entirely inside the roof. So when you look at the building from the outside, you clearly see only 2 stories. So if we go by that definition, we do have 2.6 meters versus 2.4 meters, and the 3rd floor inside the roof, I believe, is set back from the property line at about 5.77 meters. So I think that the building itself is in conformity with what's been established in the area. The area comprises of very large lots and new developments. So I think the proposal meets the 4 tests, and I think it's minor in nature. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we don't have any person registered. How about in chamber? Do we have anybody here for number 20, 34 Silver Grove? No. Okay, members, any questions?
Yes, just through you, Mr. Chair. I have a question. I would like to ask the applicant to repeat the last sentence that he said. he was talking about setbacks that one of them is from 577 2.6. Sorry, I didn't catch it. And please explain if those number that you mentioned is related to variance number 1. I understand that you prefer, and also the other question, you ask us to tie to all the drawings. Are you referring to update drawings, and are you referring to all plan elevation, the whole sets?
Okay, so I would like to tie the drawings to the site plan, so to avoid any complications with variance number 1, right? Because the amendments that were revised on August 8th and submitted to committee were done to reduce the side yard setbacks of the platform and the basement walkout. Now, with respect to the last comment I made about the setbacks, I would like to point out to you to the third floor plan. And yeah, so if you see there from the property line to the wall, we see a measurement of 5.77. So the third floor is actually way more setback than what the bylaw requires. And this is in relation to variance number 8.
But you're not modifying anything regarding number 8. It's just the illustration of those numbers, correct?
That's correct, yes.
You want to use the mouse?
And for variance 7, the number you adopt the recommendation of the staff. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. We did reduce the side yard setbacks as they requested, but in addition to that, we also reduced the size of the platform. So the area from 39.68 to 30.09 square meters.
Correct. And the number for variance number 1, you explained that it been updated on the site plan for the deck, and that's why you want us to not modify variance number 1 so that it doesn't apply to the whole building. Is that correct?
Yeah, variance number 1 is not being modified because it doesn't say exclusively to the rear platforms, right? So just to avoid any complications, I think it would be best to tie the drawings to the site plan as of the latest drawings on August 8th.
How did you have a problem?
Thank you.
Ah, okay. Yeah, maybe get early. We lost it here. I don't know what he did.
August 8th site plan, I don't know.
It was pulled up previously on the screen, I believe.
But we have some technical problems here.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other question? Miss Manning, you have a question?
Just asking if the latest site plan can be projected on the screen again, please.
okay? Okay. Any other question? No? Okay, can I have a motion then, please? Ms. Atarodi?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to put forward a motion with the following changes. Number 1 is the modify variance number 7 is regarding the area of the rear balcony at the second story, which is now 30.09 square meter. And I would like to tie it to the revised site plan that applicants submit on 8th of August 2023, and also would like to subject it to urban forestry.
Forestry. Thank you. Second? Miss, oh, I have 2 seconds here. Okay. Ms. Sankar, second. All in favor? Thank you. Unanimous. Okay, sir, your application is approved unanimously, subject to the forestry. And
Thank you very much for your
the
time.
modification of number 7. Application number 21, which is 110 Randolph, application 21. And here we have Eddie Perez. Eddie Perez, are you there?
Hello, good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. My name's Eddie Perez. We're here at 537 Rogers Road,
Thank you.
and we're here representing
So this is for a new dwelling. You have 9 variances. Staff report is indicating that you're modifying number 8, variance number 8, and they have another condition just to develop per site plan, and forestry. There's forestry. So we don't have anybody else. Anybody in the chamber here for 110 Randolph? No. Okay, so we don't have anybody else here, but we need you to make a short presentation, please, and tell us what you're changing it to.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. As you said, we were in touch with planning. Planning requested that we lower the height, and the height, instead of being 9.34, is now going to be 8.93 meters.
8.9 what?
8.93 meters.
93, okay. So that's the only change. That's
As per the, yeah, correct.
Okay.
As per the changes, the north side, right now, the existing house is 0.46. We're asking for 0.61. The south is 0.61, but on the front of the house, it's actually 0.88 because it's a pie shape. And it's very common in that area to have small side yards. As you can see, the house next door also has. And planning had no issues with the side yards that we're proposing. And then we have a minor undersided soffit, which is only 6 centimeters difference. And to make the house accommodate the living space, the garage area is a little bit under. Instead of 3.2, we're proposing 2.98, and that's on variance 1 and 5. So as per the whole proposal, it's very minor in nature. It's in keeping with the area, and I feel that it meets the 4 tests. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you. So the only change you made is
You're
number
welcome.
8. You changed from 9.34 to 9.93. Is that correct? To 8.93.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Okay, there is nobody else who to speak. Members, any question? Ms. Sankar, you have motion? Motion? Please go ahead.
Motion.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll put forward a motion. I think that just the fact that he's taken the time to meet staff recommendations, and there's no other concerns going on with this file. I do believe it does meet the 4 tests, so I'll put forward a motion to approve this application, and I'll make it subject to the modifications made by the agent here today, such that variance number 8 is now 8.93 meters, and that this be developed, the south side yard setback be developed in accordance with the site plan drawing attached to the report. I'll also make it subject to forestry, and that's my motion.
Thank you.
Oh, also transportation.
Second, Ms.
Wasn't there a
Atarodi,
transportation August 3rd?
Ms. Atarodi, are you seconding it?
Yes, I'm seconded.
I hear some voices here.
No, I mean, Nadini was reading the date of the transportation
Oh.
letters condition.
Okay. All right. So, all in favor? Mr. Khan, okay. All right. So your application is approved, subject to the change you made and subject to forestry.
And
Thank you.
transportation, sir.
And
And
transportation.
transportation, right.
Thank you.
Okay, application number 22, which is 150 and 156. Duncan Mill, application number 22. And here is, we have David McKay. David McKay, are you there? David
Morning
McKay?
or good afternoon.
Hi.
Yes, good afternoon. Here,
Your name and your address, please.
David Mackay,
Mackay.
MHBC Planning. Yes, 7050 Western Road, Suite 230, Woodbridge, Ontario, L4L 8G7, representing the applicant.
Thank you. This is to for an expansion to existing self-storage warehouse. Two variances. Are you aware the transportation was asking for deferral?
I am, sir, and unfortunately, I believe that transportation staff did not thoroughly review the file. There was, as you know, a previous committee of adjustment approval that studied this site in terms of reduction in parking. And as well, the committee, through this committee and others of the City of Toronto, have approved numerous reductions in parking standards,
just
and I'd
please,
like to proceed.
Okay, make your presentation if you'd like to proceed, and we'll see if we have any questions.
Yes, thank you. So I do have a presentation that staff can put up. Thank you very much. If we want to just move to the second page. So, sir, this site is located on Duncan Mills within an employment area. It is the large rectangular building on the site that's outlined in red. The majority of that building is a self-storage facility that was approved, as I mentioned, through site plan approval, as well as committee of adjustment approvals in 2018, including a reduction in the parking requirement, as well as for use. If you could go to the next page. The proposed internal expansion, there is a Noble Trade is located in the area in red. Their lease is looking to end at the end of this year, and my client is looking at the potential to expand the self-storage facility into that existing area. Next slide. As noted, it is completely an internal expansion, and staff, you can go through the next couple of elevations. So there's no external expansion at all, and we're simply reusing that internal space. In terms of the variances, as noted, there are two variances, one to reduce parking to what exists on site, 212, as well as staff, because it's an internal expansion, felt the need to reaffirm the self-storage warehouse permission that was previously granted by committee. Next slide. With regards to the reduction, as noted, the self-storage facility exists today. It recognizes that existing condition and is just simply the expansion, the change from industrial to self-storage, which necessitates a slight increase in the minimum required parking under the old bylaw. Under the new bylaw, there is no parking requirement for this type of use. And next slide. And as I'd mentioned, this was approved through a previous committee of adjustment. And as you can see by this chart, you can see that a number of the committees have approved parking reductions for self-storage warehouses throughout the city, down to 16 spaces, 14 spaces and whatnot. So the site is significantly overparked for self-storage use, and therefore we believe it's appropriate. And this was, as I'd mentioned, supported by a previous parking justification for the original variance that was approved. Lastly, in terms of the use, as I'd mentioned, it does exist today. It's a reaffirmation of the existing permission, and we believe it meets the 4 tests in that it provides for an employment use within an employment building on an appropriate site in an employment area. With that, I'd be happy to answer questions committee may have. Thank you.
Any questions? Mr. Khan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, sir, I would like to ask Mr. McKay. Sir, variance number 2, public storage not allowed in this zone. For me, the confusion is, how did it get approved in the first place, first instance, and now you're coming back for the expansion of self-storage within 2-story industrial building, and it is not allowed? How should I understand?
So, sir, the bylaw, you're right, the parent bylaw does not permit the use. The committee did approve self-storage as an appropriate use on this site. It is similar in nature to warehousing and other employment uses that are permitted on the property, and that was granted previously in 2018. We are simply expanding that permission onto the use. It does not create any adverse effects. It's in conformity with the official plan. And the intent and purpose of the bylaw is to provide for employment uses on an employment site. So we believe that it did meet the 4 tests previously, and it does today.
Okay. Any other question? If no questions, can I have a motion then, please? Ms. Attarodi?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I listened carefully to the presentation, and I've been convinced that this is minor. Therefore, I would like to put forward a motion to approve this application.
I'm sorry, to what?
To approve this
Okay,
application.
thank you. There's no conditions. Can I have a second, please? We have Ms. Attarodi, second, Ms. Sankar. All in favor? Opposed? Mr. Khan opposing. Okay, sir, your application is approved, and that's
Thank
it.
you.
Okay,
Have a good day.
you too. Okay, we have a request for a break, so we'll have just 5 to 10 minute break we got to do. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're resuming the session here. And we have here application number 23. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we have application number 23, which is 1648 Victoria Park Avenue. And here we have Benjamin Larson. Anybody here for Benjamin Larson? Mr. Larson, are you online?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, could you please state your name and address so it can be recorded on the system?
Yes, my name is Benjamin Larson. I'm a senior planner at Hunter and Associates Limited, address 15 Gervais Drive, Suite 503, Toronto.
Thank you. So we have here, this is a townhouse development. Just for variances and staff report is asking just to design per site plan. I have nobody else here. Members, do we need a presentation here? No? Okay. Ms. Manning, can I have a motion?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think this is a straightforward application that meets the four-part test. I'd like to make a motion to approve this application with the condition of the staff report to tie it to the site plan.
Okay. A second. Ms. Tarodi, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Larson, your application is approved based to only the site plan development per staff, okay?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Number 24, which is 22 Deepwood Crescent, application number 24. And here we have Michael Egberts. Are you there?
Michael Egberts from Egberts Engineering. The address is 235 York Glen Boulevard, Suite 1110 in Toronto.
Thank you. Okay, this is we have here the other person to speak here is the owner. Are you going to talk for the owner?
I'm going to talk for the owner, but he wanted to be present in case there was any questions for him. But I think this is a pretty straightforward file, so hopefully there's.
So you said in case. So if we don't have any questions, you're the only one who wants to speak, right?
That's correct.
Okay, good. Okay, so what do we have here? We have a addition to the east side, 1 variance and 3 letters of support. So this is a members. Do we need any presentation here? No. Ms. Satarodi, you had your hands.
Okay, yes, I'm
What?
ready.
You have a question?
No.
No. Okay, so I have to, sir, I don't think we need a presentation. Do you want to add something before we move to committee?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay, if there's any question, we'll come back to you. Okay, so can I have a motion then, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to put forward a motion to approve this application with no other condition.
And there's no conditions. Second, Ms. Manning, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, sir, your application is approved and there is no conditions.
Thank you.
Application number 25, which is 60 William Craig, application number 25. And here we have Kelvin Lowe. Are you there?
Oh,
Yeah, hi. Could you please state your name and address for us, please?
my name is Calvin Lowe. My address is 3575 14th Avenue, Markham, Unit 18.
Okay, so here it is. This is for a carport. We have 3 variances. The staff report is asking to refuse variance number 1 for Frontier. Could you please make a short presentation and tell us what it's all about?
Sure. So my name is Calvin Lowe, and I'm the architect representing the homeowner of 60 William Craig Drive. We are proposing a carport on the side of the existing house, and we are asking for 3 variants before you as follows. Our latest drawing is the August 1st plan that was uploaded to CFA. So variance number 1, the bylaw does not permit us to park at the front or the side of the house. And we are asking a variance to be parked at the front of the house. Understood that the city planner recommend refusal for this variance. However, if you look at the adjacent neighbor or house down the street, we all park on the front yard, and we believe this is a minor and suit the neighborhood, as this carport and parking will not affect the streetscape of William Craig. Variance number 2, the bylaw requires 3.2 meters in width of the parking space, and we are asking to reduce it to 2.6 meters instead. Variance number 3, the bylaw requires us minimum side yard setback are to be 1.8 meters, and we are asking for variance 0.3 meters instead. So in summary, the existing parking of 16 William Craig is already existed at the front of the house for a long period of time. And we are proposing a carport on the side of the house, and that's why variance number 1 got triggered. Again, if we look at the neighborhood, everyone is parking at the front, the side of the house, and what we are requesting is appropriate for the neighborhood. If the variance got refused, the homeowner still cannot park their car at the rear yard to limit the side access. The narrowest part of the house between the property line and the house is 1.9 meters. After that, there's an existing retaining wall blocking it. The city requires minimum of 2 parking spaces, and in this property, the homeowner got no choice but to park their car on the side or the front of the house. And this is why we are here to seek for the variance. And we believe the variance we are requesting is minor in nature and fits the surrounding neighborhood and fit the 4 test. If there's any question, please let me know, and I'll be happy to address them.
Okay, thank you. Do you know if you have a permit parking on the street?
I don't think so. I need
There's
to
no
double
parking
check with the homeowner.
So there are people who are parking front yard parking, is that correct?
Yes, if you look on Google Map, you see everybody parked at the front.
So what was the discussion with the staff? Why are they saying refuse it? Do you know?
The way that I read the plan, the staff report is that because it doesn't fit the official plan,
Okay.
the official plan want new development to not have parking at the front.
Okay, all right. So let's see what members have to say. Any question for the speaker? First of all, is there anybody on in the chamber here for number 25, which is William Craig? Nobody here? And online, we don't have anybody. So any question? Mr. Khan, you had a question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I would like to ask, this carport is covered or open?
It's covered by the roof and it's open on 3 sides.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, any question? If not, can I have a motion then, please? Miss Manning, yeah?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I understand the staff report's objections, but I also think it's important to take into consideration the neighborhood and the fact that front yard parking seems to be very in keeping with this neighborhood, like all of the adjacent neighbors. So I do think that this application meets the 4-part test, and I would like to put forward a motion to approve.
Thank you, and there is no conditions?
No.
Thank you. Second, Ms. Sankar, seconding. All in favor? Okay. Miss opposed? Miss Tarodi is opposing. Okay, sir, your application is approved and there is no conditions.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
26, which is 56 Parkview Avenue. And 26, yeah, and here we have Addison Mann Price. Are you there? Addison Mann Price.
Good afternoon.
Hi. Could you please state your name and address for us, please?
Yes, my name is Addison Milne Price. I'm a planner at Design Plan Services located at 900 The East Mall, Suite 300.
Okay. So here we have a is a new dwelling, was deferred in April, 16 variances. Staff report just asking to develop per east side elevation drawings, and we have forestry conditions. So can you please make your presentation for 5 minutes, tell us what the merit of this application?
Yes, sir. as you mentioned, this application was originally scheduled on April 13th and was deferred to discuss with planning staff and revise the application. Following these discussions, a revised plan was created and a revised set of variances was prepared through a zoning notice. You'll note that the amount of variances requested has increased from 8 to 16, despite the application being scaled down. I'll get into that in a moment. First, I'll describe the following changes that were made to the application. Firstly, a large portion of the west side wall and the rear deck on the west side has had its side yard setback increased from 0.92 meters to 1.2 meters. The main wall height has been reduced from 8.89 meters to 7.96 meters. The overall building height has been reduced from 11 meters to 10.15 meters. The rear balcony on the second floor has been reduced in size from 15 square meters to 3.79 square meters, and the lot coverage was reduced from 32.2% to 31.8%. There were also several new variances that were identified or triggered as a result of these changes. In order to reduce the total overall height of the building, the height of the basement was shifted in a manner that caused the zoning bylaw to define the basement as the first floor. As such, the dwelling is now identified as a 3-story dwelling, which triggers several variances, despite the height of the dwelling being reduced from the previous iteration. As a result, the rear deck is now considered a 2nd-story platform, despite being level with the apparent ground floor of the house. Subsequently, the 2nd-story balcony, which would be permitted as of right, is now considered a 3rd-story balcony. As noted by the chair, there are 16 variances requested. However, many of them can be easily grouped together. Variances 1 through 7 all pertain to the side yard setbacks, and all platforms that trigger these variances are in line with the sidewalls proposed, and I'll discuss these 7 variances together briefly. The requirement for side yard setback on this property is based on the minimum lot frontage required. In this case, the minimum lot frontage of 15 meters is significantly below the actual lot frontage of the property, 9.14 meters. As a result, the minimum side yard setback required of 1.8 meters would end up with approximately 40% of the lot being devoted to side yard setbacks. Whereas on a 15-meter lot with 1.8 meter setbacks, only 24% of the lot is devoted to side yard setbacks. As I noted, the majority of the west side of the dwelling now features a setback of 1.2, and when added together with the setback on the east side, the ratio of side yard setbacks is 23%, which is generally in line with the ratio required by the zoning bylaw. I'll note that it's also very similar to other approvals that have been made along Parkview Avenue, specifically 58 Parkview Avenue, the adjacent house to the east was approved with a side yard setback of 0.9 in 2019. Now, to quickly speak to variances 8 and 9, these variances both directly relate to the fact that the basement is considered the first floor. Since the basement is considered the first floor, the rear deck is considered to be a balcony and therefore counts towards the maximum number of balconies. In addition, because the rear deck is considered a 2nd-story balcony, it is also regulated by the maximum area for balconies, which does not apply to rear platforms below the 2nd story. Now, variance 10 is a direct result of considering the basement the first floor. Because of this, the 2nd floor is considered the 3rd floor, and the overall dwelling is considered a 3-story dwelling, despite being lowered in height from the initial submission and clearly being reflected as a 2-story building in the front elevations. Now, with respect to the remaining variances, I'll note with respect to building length and depth, the proposed rear main walls have been developed to align with the adjacent dwelling. The proposed lot coverage represents a difference of 8 square meters from what is permitted as of right, and the proposed height represents a difference of 15 centimeters from what's permitted as of right. And based on this provided justification, I'm of the opinion that this application meets the 4 tests and represents good planning. This concludes my presentation.
Okay, Well, you're exactly at your 5 minutes. I'm impressed. Okay, the three-story really is like the basement is considered as first story, and therefore is a technical three-story. That's what I was worried about, but it's you covered it. That explains it. Now, staff report is asking only for like a condition to build per east side elevation drawing, and there is no other, I don't have any other documentations. Members, any question? Ms. Manning? No questions. Okay, if there's no, Ms. Sankar, did you have a question?
Yes, I have a question.
What?
Yes.
Question?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
So I just would like to ask the applicant to repeat the modification that he does to this application by number of variants, which variance and which number, because, correct me if I'm wrong, variance number 1 and 7, you mentioned that all the side yard setback is 1.2 meter. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct.
Okay.
There is a portion of the west side wall that is set back 1.2 meters. All of these setbacks we are requesting is 0.9, however.
Okay.
So, and then would you please repeat the modification, the changes that you done to the variance, or you haven't done any changes?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I was not modifying any of the variances that are on the most recent public notice. I was merely explaining the difference between the two public notices, the one that was first issued and was deferred, and the application that is before you now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now, before we move on, anybody in the chamber here for 56 Parkview? No. Okay. Okay, so Ms. Manning, you have a motion?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. This application was previously deferred in April to give the applicant an opportunity to work with the city. I know that there is an increase of variances, but those are technical in nature due to the basement being considered the first floor. And they have made various changes and updated the notice. So I'd like to make a motion to approve this application, subject to the condition that it be built in substantial accordance with the east side elevation drawings pursuant to the staff report, and also subject to the conditions of forestry.
Thank you. Second? Ms. Sankar seconding, all in favor? Unanimous. Okay, sir, your application is approved unanimously, subject to the staff report condition and forestry.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So that is the 26. Now we have 27, application number 27, which is 41 Linnell Street, application number 27. And here we have Dan Antimovic. I hope I pronounce it well. Dan Antimovic, are you there?
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Could you please state your name and address for the records here?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Dan Achimovic. I'm the architect for the project. We're located at DA Design at 1185 Queensway East, Suite 3A in Mississauga.
Okay, thank you. We have here, this is a two-story garden suite, 5 variances. The staff report has no concern with the application, and we have just one letter of objections. However, other letters of support and objection. Okay, because this was from August. Okay, so here we have, bless you. So because we have here 2 more speakers who want to speak on this application, so please take 5 minutes and give us the merit of this application.
I appreciate that. If you could potentially share the drawings for me, I would appreciate that, and I can start the explanation of what we're proposing here. Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, this cover page is a good place to start. So basically what we're asking for is permission for 5 variances on this proposed design. And on this cover page, you see is the revised existing garage in that dark gray box, if you will. with the light gray box attached to it. Okay, so what we're trying to do with this very different proposal from what we came in with a few months ago is to salvage as much as we can of the existing garage. The existing garage was built not too long ago. It was built very well, lots of concrete, very sort of solid from a structural perspective. So what the owner is looking for is basically a secondary suite at the back of the property that would allow her and her partner, who is visually impaired, to have a comfortable home at the back of this property. A couple of interesting things about this proposed laneway or garden suite, if you will, is the fact that it backs onto an existing mausoleum. So if you could scroll down for me, that cover page shows you the height difference, the white, black and white image. Sorry, go back up to the cover page. The side view, if you will, shows you as to how large the mausoleum is at the back. And you can see the home on the left-hand side and the actual laneway suite in between the two. So from that perspective, to the rear of the property, we're not really disturbing anybody. On the photos at the back of the bottom of this page, you can see the existing garage. And that's what we're planning to basically stay within that footprint. And that's what's causing 3 out of the 5 variances we're asking for. If you could please go down to the site plan. I'm going to run out of time here pretty quickly. So if we can scroll down to the proposed site plan. So that's the existing survey. You can see the semi at 41, and then you can see the existing garage. Now, if you zoom in on the back of this property, you can see the dark gray box represents the existing footprint of the existing garage. To the right of us, to the south, is the neighbor who also has a garage slightly off of the property line. We're basically right on the property line with the existing. If you can scroll down to the proposed site plan, I can show you what we've done, which is basically we've kept the footprint of the existing garage and attached to it the proposed addition in order to build a comfortable garden suite. The proposed light gray version stays within the setback on the north. It stays within the 5-meter distance from the existing house, but the existing garage footprint causes variance number 1, number 2, and number 3, which is the rear setback, right setback on the south side, and also the distance to the existing home. So those are the 3 existing. Variance number 4 deals with the lot coverage. We are at 48.71, where 40% of the rear yard is allowable. So we're slightly over there. And the final variance is number 5, deals with the parking situation. So you can scroll down just a little bit here. You can see the outline of a parking spot required by zoning between the 2 semis. It's a shared driveway, if you will. We don't accommodate a 2.6 wide car with a 0.3 setback off of the house. But if you visited the site, you probably have noticed that there are many cars in those 2 driveways. Basically, the driveways are used for parking, and many cars can be parked in there. We're just not able to accommodate an actual zoning spot. The last thing I want to just kind of talk about before I run out of time, if you can scroll to the elevations, please. I wanted to show you that this proposed garden suite basically does not protrude past any height limitations, and we've also stayed within the 45-degree angular planes on the north side, right? And the only place where we didn't is, once again, on the south side, where we are right on the property line. So I do understand that there's a letter of objection from the neighbor to the north, but from their perspective, this proposal is actually the most accommodating to them. Just because we've stayed within the limitations on that north side. If there's any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you. Okay, sir. I was just showing a document from the transportation that was asking to refuse the application. So did you have a chance to discuss it with the transportation?
Correct, yes. The transportation department did contact us, but it's physically impossible to accommodate a parking space. So from their perspective, they're strictly following the letter of the law. But once again, these driveways have been there for decades, and many, cars are able to fit in those driveways, both
Okay.
properties. Simply put, we just don't have the physical distance between the two.
Okay, so we'll be back to you. We'll see here what the we have residents here. We have Ronald Martin. Are you there, Mr. Martin? Or Vera Tales or Laura Tales? Anyone?
I'm representing all the homeowners of 39 Linnell Street, which includes Ronald Martin, Laura Talas, and Valika Talas.
Okay, so please, could you tell me, please, your name and your address?
Sherry Talas, 39 Linnell Street, Toronto, M2N2J4.
Okay, are you speaking for Ronald, Vera, and Laura?
Yes, we
You're all
own
together.
39 Linnell Street.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so please go ahead and tell us what's your concern about this application.
Okay, I'll read my notes. So good afternoon. My name is Sherry. I'm the homeowner of 39 Linnell Street. I'm the property attached to 41 Linnell Street. I'm representing all the homeowners of 39 Linnell. We have already submitted a letter of objection, but I'm here to affirm that we object to two items regarding the proposed construction. One being the proposed separation of 4.06 meters, which is approximately 13 feet from the residential building versus the allowable 5 meters, as well as the rear yard coverage being 48.71% versus the allowable 40%. We have noted that the proposed construction would result in the following: inconsistency in the appearance or aesthetic of the neighborhood. There are no other garden suites on our street. The style of the construction is not consistent with other auxiliary buildings on the street. The reduction in privacy due to the construction's proximity to the main structure. The building's curtains will need, our blinds and curtains will need to remain closed or partially closed to ensure privacy at the rear of the home due to the close proximity of the construction to the main structure. The front windows of the construction that's proposed face the main structure. Although 0.94 meters may not seem a big difference, but when you are talking in feet, which is approximately 3 feet, when looking at something that is approximately an additional 3 feet away makes a difference. So a separation from the residential building of 5 meters would allow more privacy. The overall size of the structure will reduce airflow circulation in the backyard area. The construction as proposed will impact our property value as well as the resaleability of our property due to its overall size and proximity. Sorry, I lost my spot. Proximity to the main structure. The overall size and rear yard coverage of the construction may lead to potential drainage issues and potential flooding onto our property. Currently, the backyard of 41 Linnell Street sits at a higher elevation than our property and can lead to potential flooding into our property. 43 Linnell, that sits to the south of 41 Linnell Street, and they're joined by the asphalt driveways you see in the pictures. This property has almost zero soft landscaping in their rear yard. To be clear, their rear yard is almost all pavers and a deck. So with no soft landscaping at 41 Linnell Street and this construction taking an additional 8.71% of the rear yard of 41 Linnell, where is the water going to go but onto our property and potentially onto the 45 Linnell, which is attached to 43 Linnell to the south. Basically, without soft landscaping and the reduction in the backyard space, where is the overall water going to go? We feel that approving this application as it has been proposed would set a precedent and open the door to other large structures in the rear of properties, not only on our street, but in our neighborhood. Overall, we request that these two items, proposed separation, rear yard coverage, be revised to be within the bylaws. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so let's see if there's any question. Any question for the speaker? If not, we'll move to the next speaker, who is, we have one more speaker here. Austin Pinto? $27. No? Yeah. 27. Huh? Yeah. Yeah, 27, of course. I don't know what they're.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Would you like me to unmute Austin and ask him which item he's here to speak for?
To unmute what?
Austin, the next speaker on the list.
He's not on the list. He's on the list.
He's on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I have it. Who said this is not the same application?
I'm here to speak on, this is Austin Pinto, but I am not speaking on this particular matter. I think we are on the next case, which pertains to the Regent.
Okay, so you were registered on the wrong one, right? Okay, excuse me. Is your name Austin Pinto?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, you want to speak on the application 27, which is, or you want to speak to number 28? Okay, so you can wait then. Okay?
That's correct, yes.
So you can wait. Yeah, I don't know why they put it on 27. Okay, so any so do you have a motion? Any more questions, or we'll get back the agent here, Dan Achimovich. Dan Achimovich, can you come back, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I respond to some of the concerns from the neighbor?
Yes, you heard the concerns.
Okay, so just thank you very much. Are you able to share the drawings once again, please? And could you please go to the existing site plan? So just regarding the grading and softscape and rainwater control, et cetera, just to put the neighbors' mind at ease, this process, we still have to go in for building permit, and the building permit application will require stormwater management site plan, proposed grading. At no time are we going to be allowed to dump any of the stormwater onto neighboring properties. I mean, that's a pretty standard thing. So you can see that on this existing site plan, between the house and the existing garage, there is actually a large part of the space in between that's actually paved with pavers and also asphalt. Now, if you slide over to the proposed site plan, you'll notice that we actually eliminated all of that space, all of that hardscape, and replaced it with softscape to minimize the amount of hardscape behind the home and in order to help protect the neighboring properties. The proposed grades on this property will slope away from the neighbors onto our property and likely down the driveway towards the street. Okay, so that's one concern regarding stormwater. The other one had to do with privacy. If you can please slide down to the elevation, the front elevation of the proposed design. You'll notice that literally, and even, literally the only place where we have windows facing the neighbor to the north at 39 is one window off of an office space on the top left corner there, and you'll see that there's a small basement window. The north side facing 39 actually has windows, and what we were trying to control is the privacy issues by introducing, if you go to the roof plan, there's actually 3 large skylights, and this is how we're proposing to add tons of daylight into this new build without affecting the neighbor's property. And yeah, that's kind of like, the feedback that I have for them next door. So we did take their concerns into effect here with the proposed design.
Okay, any question? No? Then can I have a motion there, please? Mr. Khan, Mr. Khan, do you have a question?
I have a question, sir.
Please go ahead. Please go
Thank you, sir. Through you, sir, my question is about the grading. What is the swale flow towards 39 or from 39 to 41 or towards the lane?
In this case, we haven't done the stormwater management plan, the grading plan. That's basically done typically at the permit stage, which would be next if we are approved today. But in a case like this, where you have a semi between 39 and 41, you can't introduce a swale between the two, obviously. So all of the stormwater from the back of this property would have to be swaled towards the shared driveway between 43 and 41. And in that case, what typically happens is the driveway is shaped into a V away from the homes and into the middle of the driveway itself.
Thank you.
Okay, any other question? If not, can I have a motion then, please? Ms. Sankar, you're looking at me. And Ms. Satarodi, please go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I've been convinced that this is very minor, and we also received an email from staff on August 10th, 2023, that they also have no concern with this proposal. And I would like to put forward a motion. And since the parking, the location of this garden suite was existing, therefore I think it's an appropriate development. So therefore, I would like to put forward a motion to approve this application with no condition.
No conditions. Thank you. Second, Ms. Manning, all in favor? Opposed? Mr. Khan is opposing. Okay, sir, your application is approved and there is no conditions.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Okay, now is the Grollo. Okay, now we have application number 28, which is 551 Mount Pleasant Road. And here is the agent and applicant is Vladimir Nickel and David Bronskill. So which one of there are you? Which one is there? Vladimir Nickel or David Bronskill?
Vladimir Nickel.
I'm sorry, could you speak up a little bit?
Yes, hello, I'm Valdemar Nickel. I'm a registered professional planner with Noor Architects on behalf of the owners.
Okay.
And with me, I have my friend today, David Bronskill. David?
Okay, for the record here, we have to register the name and the address. You said your name. What's your address?
Thank you. It's Noor Architects, 175 Bloor Street East, Toronto.
Thank you. Thank you. And so, are you going to speak or Mr. Bronskill is going to speak? Because
I believe Mr.
Because we allow you 5 minutes and you decide which one want to speak.
Yes, I believe my friend David will begin with our presentation.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Bronskill, we have this application here is to renovate and partially reconstruct existing theater. This was deferred in June, and we have extensive documentation from there. This is 3 variances. Staff report is asking just a condition to build for north, south, east side elevation drawing. Heritage planning has condition, and there is forestry condition. So could you please give us a 5 minutes presentation and tell us what the merit of this application is? Mr. Bronskill?
David, are you able to?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've unmuted both David Bronskill and Valdemar Nickel.
While we wait for Mr. Bronskill, perhaps we can put up the latest graphics package.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Okay, Mr. Bronskill, I know, I know.
Yeah, apologies. I had competing microphone issues, so I'm here, and I'll just introduce myself for the record. Last name's Bronskill, first initial D for David, and the address, sir, is 333 Bay Street, Suite 3400 in Toronto.
Perfect.
Apologies, sir. I was in another
Perfect.
program that was apparently using my microphone.
Okay, please go ahead. You have the 5 minutes and give us the merit of this application.
Thank you, sir. And as you noted, we were deferred last time to have the opportunity for additional discussions with residents. We appreciate that opportunity. It was arranged through council for some of those residents, Mr. Harrington. It obviously, sir, did not ultimately resolve matters, but it was honest and direct dialogue that we appreciate. In the meantime, Mr. Chair, I would note for the record, City Council has authorized the alteration permit for this project under the Ontario Heritage Act, indicating City Council support. And I would note among the different letters of opposition and support, there are letters of support, including from the BIA and the local resident association, CEDRA. And Mr. Chair, we continue to have the support of city staff. As you noted, there are memorandums in support recommending conditions of approval and no memos from any department recommending deferral or refusal. Mr. Chair, as you see on the screen, this is the proposal to revitalize the Regent Theatre, a gem in the city of Toronto located on the east side of Mount Pleasant, south of Eglinton and within walking distance of the new LRT station. The project has evolved over time, Mr. Chair. There have been some changes and some concessions through the process. For example, Mr. Chair, there is, despite some of the letters of opposition, there's no public at the rear of the building. A proposed community space has been changed to
David, we seem to have
Yeah, we lost you.
lost
again.
you.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair, did you lose me?
Yeah,
We did.
so please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just doing some of the changes or concessions through the process, including the change from community space to exclusive rehearsal space, the elimination of public access at the rear of the building, closed delivery area, the commitment to be secured in the site plan approval process for a flag person for any delivery vehicle backing in or out of that space, a commitment for a construction liaison committee plan, and as well as our client's previous.
We keep losing him, yeah. Not his fault.
In terms of the presentation, Mr. Chair, I'm going to just flag a few aspects of it, just so that there isn't some confusion. And if staff were able to move to page 2 of that presentation, that just shows the site and the existing building profile in blue and the proposed rear addition in what is a coral or pink color at the back. There are variances under both 45(1) and 45(2)AI of the Planning Act. One of those relates to the extension of a legal non-conforming use, which has been thoroughly reviewed and confirmed as required by the city's zoning examiner. That is, there is no outstanding issue as to whether or not this is a legal non-conforming use. The balance of my presentation, Mr. Chair, I'm going to just deal with some graphics associated with specific variances, because some of the variances relate to that existing structure and some of them relate to the extension. So for example, variance 10, if staff don't mind just quickly going to page 21, and Mr. Khan, you had asked about this last time. It's the variance that deals with the penetration in the angular plane. This is the existing building. And so if staff could go to the next page, page 22 of the presentation. It just shows that it's the existing building itself today. No, it's page 22 of the PDF. Sorry, Mr. Chair. It's variance number 10. It's a penetration in the angular plane, and it's in fact the existing building. I know I'm short on time, Mr. Chair, so I'll keep moving. There are variances that extend the existing building. Variances 2 and 3 relate to existing side yard setbacks. Variance 4 simply extends the existing height. And a few of the requested variances directly relate to the extension itself. Variances 6 and 7 are a new staircase on the south side. Variance 8 results from the fact that the Hadley frontage is treated as the rear, but it actually results in a setback along Hadley that is deeper to enable landscaping in that area. And variances 12 and 13 relate to the third-story main walls, not adjacent to a street or lane, continuing the 0-meter setback. Mr. Chair, because my time is running short, I'm going to ask if staff could flip through to page 27, just so that I can end, to note the sloped roofs of the extension for the committee, screening mechanical space that is behind, and noting, if I can, for the committee that there is some opposition to what is perceived as a loading space at the rear, but it's not actually a traditional loading space. It's deliveries. It's not loading or garbage as we think of it is in a condominium building, but it's in a fully enclosed space that can be used for deliveries for the site. You can see it there in that presentation in terms of how it's fully enclosed. And if I could just end on page 32, with staff's assistance, it shows that rear rendering. You can see the door that encloses that delivery space. You can see how the rear is sloped so that it transitions to adjacent residential properties, and in fact is an extremely high quality of design that we think is actually going to provide safe, open, and green space along Hadley to make this a welcome addition to the neighborhood. Mr. Chair, that's an overall presentation. I know the panel may have some questions, and we're also here to listen and provide some response to those who are about to speak.
Yes, thank you. We'll be back to you after we deal with the present people here. So I understand all of you here are for this application here. Okay, and that's for the application. Now let me, we have also two people online. Mr. Pinto, who was on the wrong file, and we have another one on the online as well, Stanislav. So both of these will go after we deal with the people who are in the chamber first. Now, just let me give you an advice. My experience is if we keep repeating the same thing over and over again, it loses the value. If we hear it one time, twice with strong person, then we take it, you know, we can see what it is. But repeating the same thing over and over is not going to advance. On the contrary. So to suggest to you, maybe you can have one or two speakers come here and give the presentation of what the problem is, if you agree to that. Otherwise, we'll keep listening. So would you be able to do that? Yeah, well, it's okay. Well, there's only so many applications, so many variances, and so many questions you have. I'm sorry? Okay. All right. Okay, so who wants to speak first?
Stand here. Thank you very much.
Your name and your address, please.
It's David Hirsch. I live at 23 Hadley Road.
Hirsch, just a second. Irving, I don't have those here. Huh? Excuse me, could you please, you're not registered there, could you tell me your name first and last name and your address?
Of course. It's David Hirsch. I'm at 23 Hadley Road.
Okay, so please go ahead and tell us what you're concerned about.
Thank you very much. My presentation is a bit lengthy. I'll try to truncate it if I can. At the outset, I'd like to say that the neighborhood is not opposed to the restoration of the theater. We think it would add quite a lot to our village and our neighborhood, and we congratulate Walter Schroeder and the Terra Bruce executive for their efforts in this very challenging project. They mounted an extraordinary public meeting back in April. It was very slick, it was well put together. Every word was measured and every word counted. However, most of the words are incorrect and they're misleading. I would like to support this wholeheartedly. I think the Schraders are doing wonderful philanthropic work all over the country. I'm sure they don't intend to upset all of these people and all those that couldn't make it today, given the very limited period of time that we had for notice. I'm frankly shocked that such a philanthropist and coming impresario would be inclined to take this route for the application. The application is perfectly legal. However, the variances are major and they should not be considered by this committee. I would also like to clarify, there has been a letter of support posted by the SARA organization, which is the South Eglinton Ratepayers. They have not spoken with our group at all, despite our being well known in the community. And I would like to point your attention to the very last paragraph or second last paragraph of their letter, where they say, we support this in principle, but we would like to form an action committee with respect to the built form. So it's hardly a support without condition. Since the very slick meeting that we had with the developers in April, which unfortunately I did not attend, I was deluded into thinking that the prospect of this proposal was much less than it is. We have been treated as unimportant and as citizens who have no say in our community. We have reached out to counselors who have refused to meet with us. We have been told that this is better than a 20-story building, which as a professional in the industry is ludicrous. We met with the developer's representative twice, once in the parking lot and once on Zoom, and we were informed that this renovation, this change of use in the building will not affect local restaurants because somehow the city will propose and enforce a barring of the use of gas stoves in the complex. This is simply untrue as well. We've had many untruths in this building, in this project. I congratulate again Tara Bruce for their efforts. One of their executives was quoted in the press recently as taking a very aggressive approach. An aggressive approach does not mean flattening the neighbors and silencing the neighbors. Could you go to the next slide, please? Next page. Secondly, I think that this application should be deferred until such time as, one, it is correctly notified to the neighborhood. You will notice that the application, and even Mr. Bronskill on the Zoom call recently said, here's the existing building, here's what we're going to do, we're going to renovate and we're going to add on, and it's going to be just wonderful. Well, if you'll notice on the diagram where I've noted partial reconstruction and renovation, it is simply the facade. They went to the Toronto Historical Board, Preservation Board, presented more pretty pictures, and the board somehow agreed that the only part of the theater worth saving is the front facade. So this notice that was given to our neighbors is incorrect, and I would strongly suggest you defer it until the notice says, we're going to keep the facade, but we're going to rebuild the theater. Many of the neighbors that we've spoken to are under the impression that the theater is being restored to its former glory. It is not, and I'd like to make that perfectly clear. Next slide. I'm going to run out of time for sure. I told you about the application. The lots in question are on the Hadley Road side. They are residential lots. They have been residential lots since the 1920s. This theater has been legal non-conforming on a portion of those lots since then, despite many changes in the bylaw. Next slide, please. Next page. You'll note at the top of this page is the rendering, the artist's concept. It looks beautiful. It doesn't look too oppressive. It is at the bottom
I'll ask you to summarize, sir, first.
my summary. Well, there's a lot of slides here, and I object to that in this 5-minute thing, hence 14 people here to talk to you and waste your time. My summary is this. This is an inappropriate development. It's far, far too large. The variances requested are exponentially too much. It is going to destabilize our neighborhood. The impacts will be severe. It has already destabilized the neighborhood. The developer has purchased 7 adjacent homes, and they are now being rented out. So we're going from a quiet residential homeowner invested interest neighborhood to a neighborhood of neighbors around us who
Sir,
just
I
don't
asked you
care.
to summarize, okay?
I did.
I asked you to stop, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, because
Thank you.
there is so many people who want to speak.
They're all with me.
Yeah, they're all with you, but they're not electing you to speak for them. Otherwise,
they would if they could.
Otherwise, I'll let you speak for 15 minutes.
No problem.
But this we give.
Is that an
5
option?
Yes,
Because
if he's the only one, yes. Well, we don't work like that. So here we
well, how does that work? Can you explain it? Because we don't know.
Let me give you an advice. The Committee for Adjustment is not rezoning about all the things. You made a very nice speech. What we look at the variances.
Yes.
And if you don't address the variances, if they
The-
didn't
the
have these
variances are-
variances, they won't be here. You won't be here.
The variances you're thinking that the variances
so
are
please
subject
address
to,
the variances
excuse me,
and
Mr.
let
Chair,
not-
Mr. Chair, if you think that the variances are subject to the 4 tests under the Planning Act, you are wrong. This application is to do with impact on the community. So I can address the various problems with the variances, but this is not the measure of this project. The measure is the destabilization and commercialization of the street.
Excuse me, are you going to stop or not?
I just was correct.
No, I asked you to summarize, and if you don't,
I did.
Okay, so please go ahead. Go sit down and see.
Okay.
Any question for the speaker? No question for you, so please
Thank you
go
very
sit
much.
down.
Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy Wilson, who's Andy Wilson?
That's me.
Okay, so please go ahead. You have your 5
So,
minutes.
oh, you don't need me to give name and address and all that stuff?
I'm sorry?
You don't need me to give name and address and all
Yes.
that stuff?
Yes, please go
Yeah,
ahead.
so, sorry. Andy Wilson, 41 Hadley Road, Toronto M4S2N8.
Thank you.
So in previous discussion or submissions, I discussed the flawed legal non-conforming status argument forming the basis of this application, the unnecessary nature of the facilities housed in the structure's expansion back to Hadley, and the deviation of their use from any historic uses, the lack of fit with the local residential settings and many negative impacts on surrounding neighborhood, and that this is not a project of the Mervisers with a lifetime in entertainment, rather than an apparent vanity project of a lifelong bond rating executive who in his 80s has decided to create and develop productions in Newfoundland and bring them to Toronto in an attempt to earn their investment back. Having made these points previously, I'll focus my 5 minutes as follows. At the meeting that Mr. Bronskill referred to, I would not characterize it as honest and direct, as it opened with the developer indicating an unwillingness to entertain any changes whatsoever to the proposed plan. After hearing some of our thoughts, the developer undertook to review the ideas and get back to us. Receiving no further communication, we were stunned to see a notice of hearing for August 24th, dated August 14th, without a single change to the supporting materials. It appears the developer is ignoring residents' concerns and ramming the application through a window where many neighbors are on vacation and unable to respond on such short notice. My recent written submission discussed the indication of a 16-meter roof height at the Hadley face of the structure. This is in fact an elevation above a reference point that appears to be about 1.6 meters above grade on Hadley, making the roof over 5 residential stories and probably 17.6 meters or 58 feet above grade on the Hadley side of the property. While it may be legal to express the measurements this way, it just does not work on a residential zoned environment where neighboring properties can't measure their height above ground on the Mount Pleasant side. The committee must recognize the inappropriateness of applying standards for commercial zoning to an entirely residential zoned street. I also pointed out discrepancies and inconsistencies in submitted documents, making it difficult to know what approvals are sought from the committee and whether the application materials correctly reflect requested variances. This level of detail and complexity seems inappropriate for this process and should be subjected to the full planning review, official plan amendment and zoning amendment process. Committee of Adjustment may be a great process for reviewing residential renovations and even certain commercial issues, but full-blown redevelopment into an entertainment magnet creeping into the 65 to 85 million cost range appears far more complex than should be dealt with through 5-minute submissions from only those available to react on an artificially short notice period in the dead of summer. Even Greenwood School's simple proposal 2 blocks south, downgrading its zoning of the old Kentucky Fried Chicken and Hudson Plumbing properties to recreational parkland from commercial, requires a full zoning change and approval process. If you could put up the final slide in my presentation, this slide compares the proposal to the Mount Pleasant Theater 2 blocks north of the Regent. An example of a similar structure of the same vintage, much better transitioned into a residential neighborhood. The two are, the left and right side are identical magnification. You can see that the Mount Pleasant Theater only extends back 70% as far as the current Regent Theater from Mount Pleasant and is only 2 stories throughout the entirety of its depth. The higher level of the Regent only commences stepped well back from the Mount Pleasant face of the structure. This proposal extends the full height of the Regent back to Hadley with no step back of height on the Hadley face as exists on the Mount Pleasant face. While the Mount Pleasant Theater is only 2 stories going into a residential environment, the Regent proposes 5 stories at 17.6 meter height that will tower over adjacent residential lands, particularly a bungalow immediately north. This is entirely inappropriate and disruptive and could be done so much better. As for incorrect documents, notice the notches at the back of the Regent property on the left as it goes back towards Hadley. That considerably narrows the building back towards Hadley, but all of the developers' diagrams showing differences between the current and the proposed structures incorrectly ignore that narrowing and show the current building extending the full width to the back of the structure. We are truly sympathetic with a revival of the Regent Theater and understand that development is inevitable in our area, particularly in light of the LRT's hopeful completion. We must ensure such development is well planned and compatible with the rest of our neighborhood, and this project does not meet that standard. It must be evaluated in a full review for official plan compliance and zoning amendment, and for its fit with an overall plan for development of the area. The Committee of Adjustment process short-circuits that review, and the committee should put the process back in the hands of the City Council for comprehensive review and approval.
5 minutes is over.
That's done.
Thank you. Stay right there, see if we have any questions. Any question for the speaker? None? Okay, the next one we have is Bruce Hope. Is there a Bruce Hope here? Come on in, please. Your name and your address, please.
My name is Bruce Hope, and I live at 25 Hadley Road, which is just across the street from the property in question.
Thank you.
All right, ready to go? Thank you for the opportunity to be heard. I support the revitalization of Mount Pleasant that this proposal represents. However, the negative impacts must be mitigated, and there are negative impacts. I have 4. Firstly, that I think it changes the zoning of Hadley Road. It's a legal non-conforming existing now, but it extends far, the proposal extends far beyond that and impacts the residential nature of Hadley Road. It will bring commercial activity into Hadley Road, right into Hadley Road, in the form of deliveries and so on from trucks, in the form of staff entering and exiting, in the form of potentially rubbish accumulating, potentially noise from events or from people congregating outside the building. And I think that's a significant departure from the zoning that is present in the entire street, which is residential. So I believe that that makes it not a minor variance. I would like the committee to consider, if this goes ahead, to consider imposing conditions to address those issues, for example, by limiting the times at which commercial traffic can be present, by limiting the noise, and and I would request that it be specific decibel limits suitable for a residential neighborhood, not suitable for a commercial neighborhood. Second issue is parking. Please make a condition that incremental parking is provided. Some proportion of the theatre goers will want to drive and they will want to park. When I left Hadley Road this afternoon, there was one parking spot available. This proposal offers no new parking spots and in fact will remove 10 parking spots which exist today. Parking's at a premium in this area and all around Mount Pleasant for that matter. Most people park on the street and they have a permit to do that, but the permit doesn't help when you come home at night and find a street full of theatre goers. What do? What will local residents do when they can't park on the street or the next street or the next street for 500 meters perhaps? And I think that is a significant and lifestyle changing situation that needs to be addressed, and it is not addressed right now. Thirdly, the developer has bought 7 houses adjacent to the property. I would like to know what's to be done with those houses. If it's anything other than residential use, I think it should become part of the planning proposal. Perhaps even some of those lots could be used for alleviating the parking situation, for example. Lastly, it's already been mentioned, the building height. I believe that the angular plane penetration is ridiculous. The house immediately north of this property will be completely overshadowed by the building. The gabled end is a gesture in the right direction, but the architect has stepped the building down on the frontage so as not to overwhelm the facade, the historic facade. Why can we not do the same at the back so as not to overwhelm the residential street? In conclusion, I believe that the proposed variances go far beyond the existing legal non-conforming situation, are not minor, and do not meet the general intent and purpose of the city's zoning bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the speaker? No? Okay, thank you. Blair Wilson. Your name and your address, please.
Sorry, can you hear me, sir?
Name and address.
It's Blair Wilson, and I live at 27 Hadley Road.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to speak today. Please know that I agree that the theater and the parking lot are due for an upgrade, but in an appropriate and desirable manner, which very well could entail some inconveniences for the community. But this proposal does not do that. The proposed project is not appropriate for this residentially zoned area. It would significantly conflict with the city's zoning code, bylaw, and official plan, and detract from the quality of life for community members. Our group, as you see here, has acted respectfully since the applicant began their marketing program, and we tried to work with them, but frustratingly, they continue to push forward in a non-transparent manner using any and all shortcuts in an attempt to force a square peg into a round hole. Outside of the 50-meter radius of the Regent Theatre, i.e. the area for which the variance notification was delivered, our community is not really aware of the magnitude of the proposal, nor the proposed commercialization of a residential area. We recently went to the community, notified them of facts, and you can't believe the horrified responses we've received from our neighbors. I can barely walk the dog around the block without someone coming out of their house to ask a question about these variances and the impacts on neighborhood parking. Multiple times in previous hearings, particularly the one on June the 22nd, representatives from Tara Bruce specifically stated that they are taking advantage of the legal non-conforming use loophole. to build a new commercial structure on the residential Hadley Road side of the property. They're capitalizing on this loophole. Loophole, that was the word they used. Loophole is defined as an inadequacy in the law. And capitalism and loophole are terms that have never been synonymous with community-focused altruistic endeavors. The proposed project is expected to cause major disruptions to the neighborhood. My colleagues have and will continue to discuss them, and I will focus on the already mentioned negative impact on parking. It's already a major problem in our neighborhood, as we know, not just on Hadley Road and Belsize, but the whole neighborhood. The applicant's marketing material states that there's ample parking in the area, but it misrepresents the data in its supporting documents for this conclusion. A consultant was tasked with identifying how many parking spots existed in a 500-meter radius from the theater, presumably a 5-minute walk, to try and gauge whether the area could handle more vehicles. Their analysis consisted of taking aerial photos of the area to estimate how many parking spots there were. As you can imagine, they came up with a pretty big number. The report says that there's 1,310 spots in the area, comprised of 120 in off-street green pea lots and 1,190 on-street spaces. This conclusion is ludicrous because the off-street lots, first of all, only have 86 spots, not the 120 that the report estimates. We spoke with the lots to see. And much more egregiously, the vast majority of those 1,190 on-street spaces that the report highlights, they're already accounted for by on-street parking permit holders. This can be seen in my submission. It's on page 4, 5, and 6. And this includes the area radius map supplied by the applicant's report. That's what the applicant has put forth up there on your screen right now. And then you put up the next one. That it's hard to see, but you can see the area that I'm highlighting. That's the area from the City of Toronto's website showing the same radius with the majority of the area's on-street parking spaces that are already more than 95% accounted for. If we conservatively assume that 60% of this area that they're talking about is already 95% spoken for, and that half of the remaining 40% are allocated to on-street parking, the actual number of available on-street parking spaces is closer to 274, not the 1,190 as suggested in the report. The numbers aren't even close, and there are already vehicles in the spaces that the report says are available. It should also be noted that in winter, snowbanks take up a lot of space, meaning the availability for parking has been overstated. Finally, there's a daycare on Belsize Drive right in the middle of the area that supposedly has available parking spaces. Parents drop their toddlers off between 7 and 9 in the morning and pick them up in the evening. Already, there is insufficient parking at these times, so these parents park illegally on both sides of the road. These times correspond exactly with the times one might expect commercial deliveries to come to the proposed facility just across the street from the daycare in the morning, and with attendees to events in the evening. Please know that I agree that the theater and the parking lot are due for an upgrade, and they may entail some inconveniences, but this proposal does not include adding even one new parking space to mitigate the considerable commuter disruption that it's going to cause. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, you're very good on your 5 minutes. Appreciate it. Now let me just ask you a question. You talked a lot about parking and stuff. We look at the variances and the reports that we get from the departments. So we don't have anything here from transportation as far as how many parking and space and the problem. And we, if they didn't have these variances, they wouldn't be here. They can go and build. You won't be here, we won't be here. So we look at the variances. So if we don't have exactly what the problem about the variance is, we can't really pinpoint down. So did you discuss the parking with any department in the?
Well, yes, we did, and we've asked the applicants a number of times about parking, and their response is that the city has looked at it and they think it's appropriate. But then when we look at the supporting documents that the applicant has put forth, the numbers really aren't representative of what's happening in our area, and you cannot believe the backlash we're getting from our neighborhood. So what I'm trying to get at is, is this proposal appropriate and desirable among the 4 tests that your report highlights? And it's not appropriate nor desirable, and it has a significant negative impact on the community, and it's going to disrupt the fabric of our community.
we make our decision independent of any department that they say. Sometimes we don't have to go by what they say, and sometimes we will go. But in this case, you're talking about if it's suitable for the area. We have here the staff report, and the staff report doesn't say anything about that.
Sorry, sir, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay. So do you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
It's on. So anyways, it's okay. Thank you. You made a good presentation. Any question for this speaker? If not, we'll go to the next one. Do you hear me? Yeah. No, it's all there. I don't. Hello, hello. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so the next one is Margaret Thompson and Glenn Rice. Are you together? Separate. Well, suit yourself. I was trying to explain you that repeating the same thing over and over again, it loses the value. So please go ahead.
My name is Margaret Thompson. I live at 21 Hadley Road.
Could you please speak up a little bit?
My name is Margaret Thompson. I live at 21 Hadley Road. I thank you for, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I thank you for the time. I will not take the full 5 minutes. I have read all of the application materials from the past, and I have written objection letters and presented at the COA meetings in regards to this rebuild of the Regent Theatre in the past. I'm of the same opinion as expressed by my neighbors and friends about these variances, that they are not minor, they are major, and they are taking advantage of a loophole, as has been suggested in the past, or by my neighbors. My biggest concern here is, and I will admit, I am an emergency physician at a major trauma hospital in Toronto. My major concern here is that of safety. In our community, there is a daycare that sits within 20 meters of the rear end of this new construction. We are particularly concerned about the rear parking, rear truck depot, where, although it is enclosed, will require that the truck drivers turn in a 90-degree radius on a narrow street. I've measured the side of the street, and it's only 27 feet. And a large delivery truck or a garbage truck that is picking up stuff has got to reverse and go into this particular parking garage, which is enclosed. To do that on a narrow street where there is one lane of parking completely filled 24/7, brings down the radius of turn to even, a degree of about 18 feet, which is much shorter than that which a truck can turn around in. When someone is trying to turn backwards, they do not have very good visibility, and will, despite the fact that they're going to have a flag man sometimes in the day to have these trucks turning, will compromise potentially the children who are running toward the daycare, which is only 20 meters away. The other thing is we have seniors on our street who use walkers to get along the street walls or the sidewalks, and potentially will be at risk because they cannot hear properly, and because they cannot see properly what the risks that are in front of them. The other issue in our community currently is that at the end of the street, because our local middle school is closed, now have to be bused to other schools in the area. And they collect at the corner of our street of Hadley and Belsize in the mornings and in the evenings when they're dropped off by the bus that takes them to their respective schools now, as they have to be bused out of the area. This again presents another risk when we have a very narrow street, not meant for large trucks, with trucks that will be coming in 24/7 and 7 days a week, to deliver or to remove garbage and props, etc. I have seen children, I have seen adults in my trauma room multiple times. I don't mean to be dramatic, but I speak from experience. And I think we should be trying to mitigate a risk when we have a large addition to the back of this building that doesn't need to be there, when there is a commercial side of this particular theater. The commercial side is on Mount Pleasant. Should we change the shape of this building? Should we ask our developers to make the deliveries and the drop-offs, et cetera, on the commercial side of the street rather than the residential side of the street? We will not have risks to children, to teenagers, and to the elderly people that live on our streets. Thank you for your time. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for not taking the 5 minutes. Okay, just a second, maybe there's some question. Any questions for the speaker? No? Okay, next is, yes.
I'm going to make it very brief. I'm just going to, Glen Rice, 21 Hadley Road. I just want to reiterate the major variances. That seems to be the focus with your committee. And a 300% increase in floor space, 150% increase in the height of the roof line on a small residential street that in the wintertime, we're lucky to have one plowed road, one lane open in the winter. These variances are totally out of character for a residential area, as you can imagine. We need to meet again with the developers. We need a secondary opinion on this loophole that they talk about. That theater has not been used for over 25 years. And prior to that, it was just a small movie theater. The size of this is gargantuous. And it's facing, the rear part is the worst part. And it's facing onto a purely residential street. I have really nothing else to say. I can't believe the committee will not delay this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a second, maybe there's a question. Any question? No question. Okay, thank you. Michael Nurse? Sorry? Christoph Hassman.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
members of the committee, thank you for this time. My name is Christoph Hausmann. I live at 215 Belsize Drive, which is located immediately at the T intersection of Hadley Road and Belsize Drive, 2 doors away from the daycare center that you've heard of, and a matter of meters from the back end of the property in question. My submission today is to encourage you to give full credence to the Toronto Municipal Code and your mandate with respect to minor variances. That mandate states to approve any application for an extension, enlargement, or change of a legal non-conforming use, the Committee of Adjustment must be satisfied that 1. The extension or enlargement does not substantially increase the usability of the property. The Bruce Productions proposal does in fact substantially increase the property's usability. To wit, side yard and exterior setbacks are being entirely eliminated on the north side of the lot, which is adjacent to a residential property. The maximum height of the building is being increased to 16 meters, or a full 60% over the permitted maximum height. The maximum floor space index is being increased from the permitted 60% of lot area to 200% of the lot area, an increase of 166%. The current development standard for total interior floor area of entertainment spaces of assembly is 400 square meters. The Bruce Productions proposal is over 1,700 square meters, a factor increase of over 400%. With regard to this aspect of your mandate, I submit to you that no reasonable person of sound mind would consider these variances not to be substantially increasing the property's existing usability. They amount to a tripling of space to be used for a variety of activities that far exceed the current or historic use of the property. It is doubtful that a legal non-conforming land use designation would have been granted under these conditions at the time that it was. Secondly, your mandate under the city's municipal code stipulates that in determining whether a requested variance is minor, you must conclude that, quote, the extension or enlargement does not adversely affect the surrounding properties or neighborhood in general. I refer you to the submissions you have heard to date already and others you will still be hearing. As to the many objections to this application, and they show that this proposal will certainly affect significant surrounding properties and the nature of our residential neighborhood. In effect, the southern half of Hadley Road is being converted into a commercial avenue with high volumes of vehicular traffic accessing the property. So the residential nature of our street of Hadley Road is being significantly affected. Finally, the third aspect of your mandate with respect to minor variances states that when considering whether a proposed change is minor, you should determine that, quote, any change of use is either similar to the existing use or more closely related to the uses permitted in the zoning bylaw. I submit that it is neither similar to the existing use nor consistent with uses permitted by the zoning bylaw, as previously noted. It takes little imagination to conclude that if permitted, this development will set the standard for other low-rise commercial properties backing onto Hadley Road, thereby turning Hadley Road into a commercial access lane for future higher density commercial development along the east side of Mount Pleasant Road. Far preferable and consistent with existing zoning would be a proposal to merely renovate and improve the existing theater, which you've heard many of us are supportive of. Sorry, I lost my spot. To renovate and improve the existing theater and construct low or mid-rise residential development on the Hadley Road frontage to help alleviate the crucial shortage of housing in our city and protect the character of our unique neighborhoods. In conclusion, I urge the committee to deny this application or to defer this application as submitted on the grounds that the variances sought are by no means minor, that they do not accord with the maintenance of the character of the neighborhood, and they are inconsistent with the land use zoning permitted in this residential neighborhood. Finally, I wish to add my voice to others who have reported that contrary to the proponent's assertion and the committee's suggestion, I have had no approach from Bruce Productions staff or consultants with respect to this proposal, even though I live within a few meters of the lot under discussion. Thank you for your discussion. Thank you for your interest.
Any questions? Okay, you want a question? No, no. Okay, so the next is Donna Mary Johnson.
Hello, my name's Donna Johnson. I'm at 207 Belsize Drive in Toronto, M4S 1M3. Good afternoon, members of the Committee of Adjustments. I reside at 207 Belsize. I have lived there since since the spring of 2006. This has been a wonderful community with great neighbors. I had a planned retirement to stay in my home as long as I can. I'm a single senior citizen. My son has helped me bring my house up to snuff so that it's maintenance-free for as long as possible, in anticipation of ending my career. I got a great deal of joy sitting out on my porch, talking to my neighbors over the years. With the acquisition of 7 properties, 6 which are directly across the street from me, that has ended abruptly. That is 7 families gone. Before this proposal, my neighbors were in the process of upgrading their properties. 180 Belsize was spending years renovating his home, and he was just going to change and beautify the outside. 180 and 182 just poured a foundation for garages. 178 just put in a beautiful porch enclosure. There have been many home projects over the years, increasing the property values and making the area more desirable. Pride of ownership was alive and well in this community. All the projects probably now never will be completed, totally demoralizing the residents that are left behind. The residents now are at the mercy of one landowner. My quality of life has already been altered, and the plan hasn't even been approved. With construction and future operational goals that have been outlined in various reports, I see no future for this beautiful tree-lined quiet community. One of the properties, 176 Belsize, across from me, is being used as an office for this project. This property is adjacent to a laneway leading to the proposed Regent Theatre project. It also leads to the backyard for a handy laydown area for construction. This being a dead end, that means all the vehicles going in will be using the backup alarms through the entire day. This is not shown in the plans. I see no future where my out-of-town children and grandchildren can visit. With the proposed 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., I see no quiet nights. I see no parking for my guests or delivery or service workers to be able to park. All I can imagine is a constant noise with heavy machinery, backup alarms as trucker trying to maneuver a narrow passage, patrons excited about their night out, talking loudly and smoking in groups outside the facility. I haven't even scratched the surface of the noise and the light pollution that this commercial project will bring to this area. Many of the speakers here today are far more knowledgeable than I. However, anyone can see that this proposal, it's not in keeping with the fabric of the neighborhood. I further worry that if this commercial enterprise is allowed to go forward, that will be used in the future to rezone the properties that have been purchased into commercial properties, maybe a nice little cafe. I sincerely hope the Committee of Adjustments deny this proposal, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Any question? Okay. Amir Shapiro.
Amir Shapiro, 213 Belsize Drive.
Thank you.
Dear Chairman and committee members, thank you for giving me the time to speak. As an immediate neighbor of the proposed construction of Regent Theatre located at 551 Mount Pleasant Road, who participated in a meeting held on June 22nd, 2023, I wish to bring to the attention of the committee that no representative from the applicant, Terra Bruce Production, approached me to discuss this application. To find ways to mediate the impact of the request variances, this is in complete contrast of this committee request made to the applicant on June 22nd meeting to meet with the neighbors and discuss the impact and the request of the variances. To be specific, as an immediate neighbor on Belsize Drive facing Hadley Road, located less than 60 meters from the back entrance of the proposed commercial development extending into Hadley Road, a quiet residential street, I am surprised the City Urban Planning Department and this committee are considering allowing this street to be used for commercial and entertainment purposes. Currently, the Regent Theatre has one public entrance from 551 Mount Pleasant Road, one emergency exit facing north towards the north commercial laneway, two emergency exits facing south towards the southwest commercial laneway, and one service door, not public entrance, or an emergency exit at the back of the building facing east towards a vacant residential lot. The applicant is proposing to extend the commercial building all the way to Hadley Road with a 16-meter high structure on this residential R-zoned street. This extension, among others, will be having a commercial hall designed as rehearsal community space on the second floor to be used for event gathering and rehearsals, as per the applicant presentation made to us on April 13th. This means that in addition to the performance entrance and delivery entrance, both commercial entrances directly from Hadley Road, the applicant is requesting to have a third public entrance access from Hadley Road to the second floor visitors lobby and rehearsal community space. All this means the applicant is asking to have 3 commercial public entrances from Hadley Road instead of Mount Pleasant currently, causing noise, crowd of people gathering, heavy car traffic, and other known effects related to commercial streets. In this quiet R-zone residential street, where no street parking is available even on quiet days, as other members here mentioned to the committee. As I fully support the redevelopment of the Regents Theatre, I understand some compromise must be made to allow this development. I propose what can be reasonable solution to eliminate the commercial hall for planned event gathering and rehearsals on the second floor of the back structure. This will allow the applicant to relocate the mechanical and electrical rooms, which are currently located on the third floor, directly over Hadley Road to the second floor to take place the eliminated commercial hall. This change will allow for the third floor facing directly into Hadley Road to be eliminated to reduce the excessive height of the back structure in relation to the maximum height allowed to the R-zone sector. Not having a commercial hall at the back will substantially reduce the noise and the traffic, both for vehicles, pedestrians, for our residential street. In my humble view, removing part of the third floor of the back structure will not impact the core activity of the planned capacity of the theater, while helping tremendously to ease the impact for the nearby resident. For reference, you will find the 3D drawings and plans of the back structure provided by the applicant's agent showing the entrance on the second floor. If you can just flip it on the side. And you can actually see the people gathering. This is Hadley Road, and you can see a group of people gathering. This is by the applicant. The 3D presentation clearly show that this is not going to stay as a quiet residential street if those variants will be approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No questions? Okay. Is Michael Nurse came back? Okay, come on in, please. We didn't forget you, huh?
No, thank you for that. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Nurse. I live at 32 Harwood Road. So I live one road east of this development, and I've lived there since 1988. My wife and I have raised our family in this neighborhood, and we've been familiar with sort of the challenges of parking. Initially, I was supporting the renovation of the theater, but my concerns immediately were raised when I saw the size of the structure and the resultant expectation for attendance. So even though we're one street east beyond Hadley, I'm fully expecting that this is going to impact our parking. We have shared driveways, so we're expected to park on the street. We don't have permits, so we sort of have to duck and dive. As I left today, I noticed there was probably 25 spots on the street, and 20 of them already had vehicles in them. So I'm here in objection of the variances and would ask that you reject their application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's very short. Okay, no question here. Now, did I miss anybody, or it's okay because we have some people online, huh? What's that? What does she say? Okay, so if we finish the people here, we have a couple of people online. Oh, what's your name?
My name is Christoph Hausman. I've already spoken, but I have one thing that's come up in the course of this presentation today.
Excuse me. Did you speak here before?
Yes,
What's your name?
Hausman, Christoph Hausman. I was,
Christoph Hausman. I'm
Three or four.
sorry, I cannot allow.
just have-
I'm sorry, I cannot allow any speaker because otherwise they will never finish.
I understand that.
We still have
But
three more
we've seen
speakers
something
to
today that nobody else has seen because of no consultation. The developer said they've made changes to this proposal as a result of
We heard
consultation
that
with
we're
the
going to
city.
get him back and we'll discuss it with him and we'll argue with him.
Well,
In the
we
meantime,
haven't- the community hasn't seen it.
I cannot accept
fine,
more
I'll make my
people.
point.
We still have three people here to speak. We can't go over. Everybody got their 5 minutes. We have Slasislav Ratilovich online. Are you there? Stanislav?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, could you please state your name and address?
Yes, my name is Stanislav Rafilovich, 24 Hadley Road.
Okay, so please
So
tell us.
adjacent to this.
Okay.
Yes, so I will share.
So you heard what's happening. Please tell us what's your concern.
Yes. My concern is few. Basically, everything what people said, it's correct and true. I will just share my personal experience. Because I don't have parking off street, so I park in on street, and I have permit for that. And with permit, even with permit, I have many times struggled to find parking. When it's coming to the winter time, it's total disaster because we're very small street, and we when city deciding to clear streets, our street is kind of in the end. So it's reducing parking spots very dramatically. Also,
Mr. Ratislav,
you know,
Mr. Could you please 1 second? Usually we ask people to speak louder. You speak too loud. Could you please just a little bit less? Just a little bit less so we can hear you.
Okay. Yes, of course.
Thank you.
So also from my personal experience, when I am on backyard of my house, I can see the north wall of current theater, and it's pretty big wall which covering half of my sky. Now with this extension and new proposal of new heights, this wall will cover the view on the south. Like it's literally, I don't know, it's probably you will feel like in a prison because like huge wall in front of you. Or it's like in famous Pink Floyd song, The Wall. You will feel the same. This is what basically huge concern. Also, when I also have like very curious about 7 properties which developer bought. One of them, if we're gonna go back to the presentation from the developer on page 2, if we can put presentation from developer on page 2. On second page. Yes, on the map you can see which on the north adjacent property, it's without house. No. Yes. On the Hadley Road, you see the property without house, but the house exists. It's one of the houses which developer bought already. So my concern, because if you will change zoning, will allow this project, the developer in the future easily can ask for additional, to switch properties to the commercial. And it's really concern not just me, all of us. So I don't want to take more of your time because people literally said everything, and definitely this project will affect whole community. And when we think about people, this project definitely will affect people in that way. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you. Any question for the speaker? Okay. Then the next one we have is Austin Pinto. Are you there?
Oh, yes. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yes, could you please state your name and address for us?
Austin Pinto, 40 Hatley Road.
Thank you, and tell us what's your concern if you heard what's happening. So tell us what's your concern too.
Respected members of this committee, I am the father of Simon Pinto, who is 20 years old and has autism. We used to live on 136 Belsize Drive when Simon was born in 2003 and noticed that there was limited Simon could do inside the house. However, he loved to be outdoors. We noticed that there was too much fast-moving traffic as we were not far from the street light. This is Mount Pleasant. I made a plea to the then councillor, Mr. Walker, for speed bumps and was not given a warm reception to this idea. In 2007, we moved to Hadley Road. It being a short street running north-south has given us some comfort that Simon is safe outdoors. Subsequent to our move, it appeared the city changed its position and now there are many speed bumps on the roads running east-west. However, it was too late for us. Being a small street, Simon is known to all the neighbors and he has confidence to move about freely. He is unable to cross Mount Pleasant without supervision, but as long as he stays east of Mount Pleasant, he is safe and he knows that. On occasion, Simon will mow people's front yard or shovel their snow in the winter, and neighbors are kind and give him some money. He happily goes to the convenience store on Manor and buys himself a Sprite. Just to kind of reiterate what Dr. Margaret mentioned, there are lots of seniors on our street, and my son doesn't mind using his muscles to mow their lawn or shovel their snow. Although unable to read or write, he goes to the library on Mount Pleasant to pick up or drop a book. The proposed idea to expand Regent all the way to Hadley Road is hence going to change the entire dynamics of the street. Based on how this was explained at the presentation at the Manor Road Church, we are certain beyond any doubt that Hadley Road will transform from a quiet and safe street to a commercial street. The loading dock, I know the lawyer representing the developer tried to underplay it. You can cover it and make it look pretty, but that doesn't mean it's going to reduce the amount of traffic that it will be servicing. Connected to my son's disability, I also rely on respite workers to help me with Simon. Unless you are familiar with the situation, it's hard to explain how difficult it is to find these workers. And each and every one I have found has to drive quite a distance to get here. Even in current times, they will occasionally get a parking ticket due to limited parking spots on the street. So I cannot even imagine what lies for us in the future. We are not opposed to art in any form and welcome that in the neighborhood. As long as the coming and going is restricted to the existing space without changing the residential zone, we would support the proposal wholeheartedly. The site is accessible via service lane. Why is this not being used? In earlier case, they mentioned that they were trying to keep the building as is, but now we know that they are demolishing the building. Why aren't the service lanes being used to service the building? 7 homes in the immediate vicinity have been purchased by developers. While most people have the ability to move on given the right price, such options are very difficult when we spend years building a community support around a disabled person. From previous Committee of Adjustment meetings, I understand that the developer was supposed to reach out to the residents to come up with a compromise. From what I know, this has not happened. This simply implies that the developer is not interested in our concerns and their actions are those of a bully. The way we see it, approval to develop this site as per the existing plan is the same as getting a jumbo jet to land on the island airport. Scaling back the proposed development to a level that is organic will beyond any doubt have a sustainable outcome for both the developer and the community. Thank you very much for listening to me and the concerns of my family.
Thank you. Any question? David Hirsch, do they have a wrong one here? Was there a David Hirsch? No, I had you. No, I put you here the name because you weren't listed on the list before. Okay. All right. So let's get the applicant and see what answers he's got for you. Okay. All right, Mr. Benkowski, could you come back, please? Here. I'm sorry, Mr. Bronscale. Mr. Bronscale.
Hi, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah. Now you heard what's happening here. There's a bunch of lots of questions here. There is a lot of questions about parking, and I don't see any question from the transportation. Did you discuss this with the transportation, and what's the outcome would be? Because it's a big problem here mentioned by everybody, and the answer at the questions you heard, they won't even speak some more, but it's enough. So could you please tell us how do you address those concerns? And before it was deferred in June. So during the deferral, didn't you discuss with the neighbors and maybe try to change some things there?
Mr. Chair, I can address that quickly as part of that deferral. And I would note there have been 5 community meetings over 2 years in respect of this project. We were, as part of the...
Excuse me.
Mr. Chair, I can't respond to people if they're going to be...
Could you hold 1 second? He did not disturb you when you spoke. I don't care what he says, and let him speak. And if anybody has to make, we'll have to call the security to remove you. So I'm sorry. We conduct this in a professional manner. We're professional people, and by screaming, this is not going to solve any problem. So let him say what he wants, and we will question him. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as was noted in the deferral, we did reach out through Mr. Harrington, who was retained on behalf of some neighbors to arrange a meeting. Mr. Harrington arranged that meeting. It's difficult, as you might imagine, Mr. Chair, to be able to reach out to all speakers. So we did have that meeting. I have a different characterization of that meeting than Mr. Wilson. But Mr. Chair, I also don't think our characterizations of that meeting are relevant to the committee's consideration of the variances that are before you. But I can confirm that, consistent with the committee's wishes, we did have that meeting, as I actually think it was honest and direct dialogue, and I think there's an agreement to disagree in terms of the proposal, but it was worth having that additional dialogue. I'd like, if I can, Mr. Chair, to focus on just a few areas in response, including parking. Mr. Chair, I would just remind the committee this is Mount Pleasant, within walking distance of the LRT station at Eglinton. And the city, in fact, recently rezoned this portion of Mount Pleasant to increase the height limit to 23.5 meters. In terms of the delivery space, Mr. Chair, there was a concern raised about the turning radius. That was, in fact, reviewed by city staff with an initial application. City staff requested a change. That change has been made on the plans submitted to the city with both the site plan and the variance application. There was a concern raised about garbage using that a garbage truck using that delivery space. As I noted in my comments to you at the outset, garbage trucks are not going to use that space. It's private pickup from the street, as is done with other commercial uses and other residential uses. There was also a concern about the degree of activity and it being 24/7 and not 7 days a week. Mr. Chair, this is again delivery associated with the theater space and shows. So there's generally one set of deliveries per show when it then runs. But Mr. Chair, if there's a concern about it being 24/7 and 7 days a week, Our client is prepared to accept a condition that the loading space would be restricted to being used only between 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. And Mr. Chair, there was a concern raised about parking. I would just note a few things, Mr. Chair. First of all, there is no variance before the committee in respective parking. Secondly, Mr. Chair, a study was submitted and it has been reviewed and vetted by city transportation staff, and they have not raised a concern in respect of parking. And finally, Chair, as we've noted, the intention here is to prioritize alternate modes of transportation, including transit, and frankly, Mr. Chair, hopefully including bicycle and walking from people in the neighborhood. But as we've noted, we would be using incentives for people to use transit to access the theater, the LRT station directly to the north. I would conclude, Mr. Chair, by simply indicating that this is a legal non-conforming use. In my presentation to you, I have never used the word loophole. There is a statutory right for a legal non-conforming use to continue, and there is a process to consider an expansion of that legal non-conforming use, which is that process before you. It is not a loophole. Instead, Mr. Chair, we think this is the right process, significantly vetted by city staff, no concerns from the professionals before you, supported by the resident association, and in fact, Mr. Chair, supported by City Council through their approval of the heritage alteration permit. We think this is an extraordinary opportunity to revitalize a gem of the city, Mr. Chair, and we hope the Committee of Adjustment will see it the same way.
Okay, thank you. You see, you heard all these people, they're not coming from nowhere. Obviously, each one has their own story, how it affects them. And normally, generally, we have people who go around, and the applicants will go around and satisfy everybody and come up with a suggestion. So here we have the thing standing there. I see a lot of question about parking, and you say parking has been discussed with the transportation. I understand the city is trying to reduce the parking in the city, but if it's too much in one street, probably something would have been done. But I'm surprised. You say discussed it with the planning, with the transportation, and they had no concern.
That
Correct,
is
sir.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, so let's see.
And as I noted, Mr. Chair, sorry, Mr. Chair, if I can note for you again, there is no variance before
No,
this committee
I know.
for parking.
Yeah, I understand.
And I am not, and Mr. Chair, I hear the community. I am not attempting to downplay concerns about parking supply.
Okay, so members, any questions? Can I have questions, please? I have Ms. Tarodi. Please go ahead.
Just a question. One of the neighbors mentioned about the 7 properties that the development purchased, and they would like to know what is the future plan for it. I know it's not variance, but just want to know if you're aware of any of those.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are no current plans. That will be if and when there are concepts for that. There'll be a separate process. The only plan I can advise the committee related to this application would be to have a construction liaison office on one of those properties. The idea being, if there are concerns related to the construction, in addition to the usual phone number that would get posted, there would be a liaison office in the community that people would be able to access.
Now, how about the neighbors were talking about an extensive renovation thing. Just an idea. I know usually we don't ask this question. What this project is going to entail? Is there a lot of construction in the area?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, are you asking about the theater construction?
Yeah.
I believe Mr. Nickel may be unmuted, sir. he'd have a bit more of an understanding of the potential length of time for the construction, if that's what you're looking for.
Well, as I said, generally is not part of the variances. We don't ask about it, but since the neighbors are all concerned about it, I was just for curiosity to know how this project is going on. Is it going to take 6 months, a year, 3 years? What is it?
Right, it's Valdemar Nickel here from NOR. It's not a large structure. There is a construction management plan being worked on right now, and I suspect it's approximately a year construction project, but I will confirm that with our constructor, our builder.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. Thank you. Let's see some more questions. Any questions, members? Any other question? Miss Manning, please.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment and ask for your opinion as well, because you keep saying there's no parking variance. We understand that, but what the residents are saying is that this is going to have an impact on the parking. And when we're talking about whether this is an appropriate use for the neighborhood, I think that is relevant. So how much have you taken that into consideration?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Manning. And I think I briefly got cut off when I was talking about the parking just a few moments ago, when I attempted to say it's not my intention to downplay the concerns of the residents. And I had indicated that I lived in an area with permit parking in close proximity to a commercial street, so I understand the concern. From a planning perspective, though, there isn't a variance related to the parking in terms of the use or the size of the use. But notwithstanding that, as part of both this variance application and the site plan application, a transportation report was commissioned that included a review of parking. One of the residents disagrees with that conclusion. I appreciate the hard work that he put into it, but it also was vetted with transportation staff to review, if someone is driving, what are their options for parking in the area. And our client's parking consultant concluded that there are, both in terms of modal splits, people taking transit, but also options for parking in the area, that there are sufficient options for parking in the area, and transportation staff at the city have agreed with that conclusion. So I'm not downplaying the issue, but we do believe that it has been canvassed and addressed to the satisfaction of the professionals at the city.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other question? Miss Sankar?
No,
I'm sorry,
Attarodi.
Miss Attarodi.
Thank you. To you, Mr. Chair, two of the residents have concern about the daycare, which is in approximately or very close to this development, and also one neighbor talk about the seniors' safety. So, did you consider these two, the daycare and seniors, especially the daycare, which is in an immediate neighborhood?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Attarodi. Yes, that daycare is about between 45 and 50 meters south of the property, as I understand it, on Belsize, running the east-west street over to Mount Pleasant. We understand that there is drop-off and that there are sometimes children walking on the streets to get to the daycare. And we also heard the residents about seniors and other residents walking on the street. It has been considered. The turning radius has been appropriately revised to address that technical comment from transportation staff. There is a setback that allows, in our view, sufficient sight lines for a delivery vehicle accessing the site. They are not constant deliveries. So it is not the frequency of use that has been characterized by some of the speakers to you. And finally, as part of the site plan, there will be a flag person. So if the delivery truck is backing either in or out, there will be someone there with a flag to supervise it, to ensure that that movement is done in a safe manner. So we have listened, and that is a solution being proposed as part of the site plan.
Thank you. Any other question?
Just one last
Mr.
question.
Chair,
Please go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So Hadley has been a residential street, and I think a lot of the residents' concerns is about the increased traffic. So I'm just wondering, like, whether that was discussed in consultation and whether there are any other ideas to kind of mitigate that traffic even the pedestrian traffic on the residential side of the street.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Manning, through you, Mr. Chair. Just a few responses. First of all, patrons for the facility will be accessing from Mount Pleasant. So the access at the rear is for performers, actors, staff. It's not extensive pedestrian traffic coming in off Hadley. People accessing the theater itself will enter from Mount Pleasant on the commercial street. Secondly, there is a delivery space back there. We acknowledge that, but there's no other parking or vehicular access. And I would just respectfully say that in terms of commercial uses on Mount Pleasant or any other major commercial street in the city, whether or not this legal non-conforming use is expanded east or was expanded on the facility, the CR lot, and went up on Mount Pleasant, which for a theater, frankly, is practically not feasible. But any of these first streets in from major commercial streets inevitably do have some commercial traffic. We don't believe we're significantly increasing that beyond what is anticipated by the commercial function of Mount Pleasant. And what we are attempting to do through the incentives with alternate modes of transportation, and in particular transit, is to encourage people to be coming to the theater by transit and not just vehicles.
Okay. Any other question?
Yeah, just a follow-up. Like, I understand your response to my question, but having looked at the property, the back of the building right now looks like a vacant lot. It is not in any sort of use. And when I look at the drawings that you yourself have provided, it does look like a significant change in use in your own drawings. So it's hard for me to reconcile that with the answer that you've given.
I understand that. I was attempting to respond more in terms of traffic. So whether that GFA was deployed where we've deployed it or was deployed elsewhere, for example, in the CR lot, the alleged traffic implications would be the same. In terms of the built form on that lot, it is a through lot. It is unique. It has been extensively canvassed with city staff, and we actually do believe it fits in to the character of the street, recognizing that neighborhoods are now changing. 4 stories are permitted in neighborhoods. Multiplexes are now permitted in neighborhoods. And we don't believe it's an overwhelming physical structure for the neighborhood, especially with its additional setback from Hadley. So I'm hoping I'm touching on both of those aspects of your question, Ms. Manning.
Thank you.
Okay. And any other question? Miss Atarodi.
Yes, to you, Mr. Chair. I would like to ask from the applicant, have you ever submitted the traffic study for this proposal? Because
Yes,
sometimes
we
when-
have.
Did you hear the
Yes.
question? Yeah. Did you hear
Right, it's Valdemar Nickel here. Yes, we have submitted it. It's part of site plan approval. It's been reviewed by city staff, and comments were received and resubmitted.
So means if I haven't seen it in our package, but you mentioned that you have already submitted through the process, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it is part of the site plan approval, corresponding site plan approval review that's running concurrently.
Okay.
And then another question is regarding that lane south Manor West Hadley. Is it a laneway that you will use throughout the process, or that's not a part of your project? Because some of the neighbors have also concern about that. And one more last question, if you can answer, is regarding the the location of that. The reason I'm asking about the study is that also another neighbors mentioned about the school bus, that the location is right at the back of the property. So I have a concern about student safety.
Right. Through you, Mr. Chair, it's Valdemar Nicol responding again. The laneway that you're referencing to the north of the facility is a service laneway for the remainder of the properties to the north of the Regent for servicing. The theater is not proposing to use that laneway. What the proposal is to enclose those previously back of house uses that occurred in the open to now occur within a fully enclosed building. Back to your question about the traffic consultant, even the traffic consultant agreed to not use that laneway and enclose all those facilities. In terms of noise as well, that's part of the design of the rear of the building, is to create some sound attenuation. Theaters need to be quiet spaces, so all air handling units are highly sound attenuated. And in terms of the school pickup school bus, I am not familiar with where that pickup spot is. I don't know where the school bus picks up, so I cannot speak to that. Just as an addendum to an earlier comment, I believe construction, to clarify, is 22 months from start to finish. So that includes interiors as well.
Okay. Any other question? If there is no more questions, we need a motion. Excuse me. No. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We can't go over and over again. We understand. Well, we don't know what our decision would be. So. We can't go over again. What is there? Yeah?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I can't hear what's going on. I think.
No, it's okay. We're
not
discussing.
Sure what's happening.
Tony, what is it that you'd like to what is it like that you want to contradict?
Yeah, I can call up a document that will show some serious things that are wrong with what he just said.
Which one you want to refer to? What kind of
Wrong plan.
You want to rebut a plan?
I've got.
As to what question he's asking, to what answer he did.
Access from Hadley.
Access from Hadley. Okay.
That there is no public access through there.
Okay. Let's put that one, access from Hadley.
Can you call
okay.
Up my,
and one person, please. One person. I don't need. Yeah.
Can you call up my presentation, please?
We can't go over again. Everybody.
No, that's fine. So go up. Okay, one more. Okay, can you zero in on the bottom of that red block? You're going to need to magnify it a lot. Okay, up. So what the highlighted thing at the bottom, what does it say? How does it describe that entrance? I can't read it from here, but
Through you, Mr.
It
Chair.
says entrance to the community space, right? So that community space is the events theater. They have an 800 square foot kitchen in the basement that's going to be serving that. So when they have weddings or bar mitzvahs or whatever, the entrance to that is from Hadley Road. He just said there is no entrance from Hadley Road for the public. That is factually incorrect.
Incorrect. Okay.
As per their own documents. There are other things like that I can point out that they have presented to you that are factually incorrect.
Okay, thank you. We allowed that here because generally we can't go back and forth. So we allowed that. Let's see what he says about that.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, this is the problem with what we're doing. There are no, he speaks of dinner theater and community events like the Capitol Theater and Yonge. That's not the programming for this facility. So I stand by what I said, and I'm not going to prolong this any further by getting in a back and forth with people in the chamber.
That's right. Okay. 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 So, if there is no more question, I need a motion. Do I have a yeah, Ms. Sankar.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, I think I've heard quite a bit of what all of the neighbors have had to say, and I think it was repeated in terms of the questions that were posed by Member Manning and Member Attarodi as well. I'm looking at this application, and I know that it's gone through iterative processes, have been deferred, and I sense what the applicant is wanting to do here. And sometimes we're left in really difficult circumstances where you're understanding both sides of this. But my job is really to assess this under 4 tests. And when I look at this application, I'm thinking to myself, if you wanted to refurbish this theater for good use, and I understand that, I understand economic development and revitalizing communities, but I think you have to look at it from a standpoint of, you know, how is it impacting on all of the neighbors? You know, what's happening there, and why couldn't it have been built or refurbished within the framework that we already have existing? Had that been done with that type of care, you wouldn't have come in here with you know, exorbitant amounts of you know, variances where there's all these different lens and layers on it now being opened up for complete review. I'm taking my time with this because I think I want to be really clear about why I'm making the decision I'm making. But when I look at the 4 tests, I cannot with you know, certainty feel that it actually meets the 4 tests. I don't think that it's minor, and I don't think that it meets you know, within the framework and character of what's needed for what's normal or what's been there for this neighborhood. And I think the impact is extremely grand, and I think that's shown with the numbers of passionate people who have come forward to speak on this. And whilst I understand that and I support the economy and development in that sense, I don't think that this actually fits in with the 4 tests. For that reason, my colleagues may disagree, but I'm going to refuse the application.
Okay, so we have a motion to refuse. Do you have a second? Ms. Manning seconding. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, so we have 3. So the sorry, the application is refused, and you'll have to go and discuss what you want to do. That is, it's refused. So, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion to terminate? Ms. Manning.
Please, motion to terminate.
Okay, second.
I'll second it.
Okay, Ms. Attarodi seconding, and the time is 5:35.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Okay.
Everyone.